A little girl is being brutally beaten by her father. Her brother is very worried for her, but she can't do anything. That man, exhausted, he had fainted. They later arrive at the kind man's village, a community living by blacksmithing. The second powerful slash severs its arm and blood sprays everywhere. Meanwhile, in a bustling district, Ofu and Natsu were strolling together. Ofu was surprised because it was the first time she saw Natsu dressed up like this. Natsu explained it had been a while since she went downtown, so she wanted to dress up a bit, maybe catch the eye of some guy. Ofu sighed since Jinta was busy, and Genshi was no less so. They couldn't invite anyone to join, making today's festival a bit dull. But today was a rare chance to relax, so both decided to let loose and have fun. So they wandered through all the shops, enjoying every delicacy, and not missing a single pleasure. Natsu showed knowledge while introducing a fruit called hoski. She explained its bright red color was the origin of its name. Ofu added that there are many interpretations and the name can vary by region. Sometimes people write hoski with the Chinese characters meaning demon's lantern. The demon, seemingly unfazed by pain, swings its other fist down, but Jinta dodges. Hearing a legend involving demons, Natsu suddenly lost interest and didn't want to buy it anymore. Seeing that Ofu curiously asked if Natsu had a special dislike for demons. Natsu firmly said that was obvious. Who would like demons? She recounted being attacked twice by demons, and if not for Jinta's timely rescue, she'd probably be dead by now. The moment Natsu saw Jinta cut a demon's hand, she thought a legendary swordsman from fairy tales had come to life right before her eyes. Ofu asked if Natsu had feelings for Jinta. No, Natsu vehemently denied it and changed the subject to describe Jinta's vague, pensive words. His profile no longer looked like a cold swordsman, but like a vulnerable person who needed protection. Natsu felt Jinta resembled herself in some way, which sparked her empathy. Natsu wondered if there was anyone who wouldn't want to love someone like him. The bull-headed demon then says it's fascinating that demons can live for 1,000 years while human lives are fleeting. What's admirable is their ability to inherit will and skills. Ofu realized Jinta always wore a strong facade to hide the deep emotions swirling in his thoughts. The two girls were distracted by a delivery bell. Natsu curiously asked Ofu about the background of the young man. Ofu said he was a regular customer who'd been ordering noodles to go from her shop since last year. She heard he came from the capital. The seller quickly introduced himself as Akisu. However, Natsu was surprised and said that couldn't be true because the Akisu she knew was a master jeweler. Akisu just smiled and told her not to mind it. Natsu insisted she had to pay attention because she was a merchant's daughter. She glanced around and had to admit the goods looked impressive. Seeing Natsu's spirited personality, Akisu offered 2 small, elegant boxes. So the demon wants to ask Jinta, why do you swing your sword with power beyond natural law? Natsu noticed that although small, they were beautifully crafted with an antique look. Akisu guessed that at Natsu's age, she must already have someone special. He began a psychological play, advising her to buy, assuring that if she confessed, she'd be accepted. Although annoyed by his smooth talk, Ofu quickly covered, saying Natsu was just pretending to be stubborn, but actually had someone in mind she hadn't confessed to yet. Hearing this, Akisu laughed out loud, making Natsu even more embarrassed. He then showed a chubby little sparrow necklace. Natsu had to nod in agreement. It was very cute. Akisu joked that Natsu's sharp tongue was like it had a razor blade. But this necklace really suited her. He told a Qing dynasty legend about sparrows. But what does he want to cut? Jinta replies that he swings to protect the things important to him. Sparrows would turn into clams when they met the sea. Natsu wondered what that had to do with anything. Akisu joked that clams might be too early for her, so sparrows suit her better. Natsu was truly at a loss for words at his sales pitch. But she had to admit, his way of speaking was very persuasive. Akisu continued, the chubby little sparrow is adorable. This wound is like the small beginnings of young love. But one day it will blossom into clams that bear fruit. Natsu didn't want to hear any more sweet talk. She decided to buy something as payment for the consultation. The sword returns to Suzune. The demon asks if she knows who it is. She paid, grumbling about the ridiculously high price. But Akisu wasn't stingy either. He immediately threw in a hairpin for Natsu. Natsu was amazed to realize it was the famous Samuro-style hairpin. She hurriedly asked how he got it. If Natsu didn't like it, she could just throw it away. But just as he turned away, the boss's gaze followed him mysteriously. Seeing it wasn't early anymore, Natsu invited Ofu to head back together. Nightfall was when Jinta started his hard work. After finding the scared little demon sitting in a corner, he immediately asked for its real name. After hearing the name Kiko, he quickly finished it off with a single strike. She says it's a demon. Suzune realizes this, making the demoness very happy. Syrup splattered and splashed all over the wall. The boss was very pleased, paid generously, and even gave a rare bottle of liquor as a bonus. Jinta refused, saying he was still on the job. Classic workaholic, sleeping by day, flying by night. That's how the job is, so you just have to deal with it. But just as he turned away, the boss's gaze following him became very mysterious. On the road, Yotaka suddenly appeared. He asked Jinta a few questions, then subtly reminded him about the payment. The information she had been waiting for. If he wanted pay, just say it straight instead of beating around the bush. Jinta quickly took money from his jacket pocket and handed it to her. She says, "We are the same kind." Suzune weakly panics, saying she's human. Yotaka noticed something off on Jinta's face. He admitted he had just cut down something he didn't want to, so his mood wasn't great. Yotaka advised Jinta to just be himself. If he didn't want to cut, don't force himself. Jinta was a little surprised by that advice. Then he smiled and said it was nothing, just that she had heard a rumor about a demon slayer, but not Jinta. Instead, the guy specialized in working as someone who controls guardian spirits. Apparently, he used birds to hunt demons. But maybe it was just drunken gossip. As soon as Jinta arrived at the shop, Ofu was already waiting with a worried look. The demoness says she has a good older brother protecting her so much that it's admirable she thinks that way. Turns out Natsu seemed to have lost all her shame. She was sitting there dazed, waiting for him. When she saw Jinta, she rushed over and grabbed his arm tightly. She couldn't stop expressing how much she missed him. Jinta was bewildered, not understanding if she was having a fit or what. Ofu explained that since yesterday, after getting the free hairpin, Natsu put it on, immediately hoping to boost her looks. But somehow Natsu ended up like this. Since pinning that hairpin in her hair, Natsu kept saying she missed Jinta. Jinta offered to examine the hairpin, and Natsu, usually a sucker for guys, immediately agreed to lend it. Everyone quickly gathered to take a look. Jinta carefully observed but found nothing unusual. Suzune is quite scared. The demoness asks if she likes her brother that much. Still, he couldn't make a definite conclusion. After getting the hairpin back, Natsu pinned it right back in her hair. Then she clung to Jinta like glue, and Genji, witnessing this, couldn't help but frown. He probably thought this girl had lost all shame in public, like no one was around. Genji tried to pull Natsu away, but she resisted with all her might. When Natsu blankly asked who he was, Genji froze on the spot. Jinta asked where the hairpin was bought. Ofu replied it was from someone named Akisu, a skilled jeweler from the capital. Hearing this, Genji was startled and spoke up to explain. Akisu clearly logged out of the server and returned to the real world decades ago. Motohazu has a daughter. When she learned her father had taken in 2 friends, she warmly came to greet them. She says he is everything to her. The demoness tempts her, saying someone wants to kill Jinta, and asks Suzune, "Can you lend me your strength?" According to everyone's guess, this is a trap planted by Samuro himself. People started speculating, even scaring themselves, that maybe Samuro had become a demon and came back to cause havoc. The ramen shop owner reassured everyone that none of that was true, because he had met Akisu and he was completely normal. There's no such thing as supernatural stuff here. Hearing this, Jinta believed the owner's words were true. This conclusion quickly left everyone stuck in a dead end. Jinta decided the only way now was to find Akisu. Aksu would know the full story. He tried to leave, but got caught by Natsu. Jinta tried to pull her hand away, but Natsu refused to let go. Just come with her for a little while, and rest assured she doesn't lie. She won't harm her. She even tearfully said she cared about him, wanted to stay by his side, and called him brother in a confusing way. Jinta was very surprised, since they weren't that close. But Natsu insisted that if she felt that way, then that's how it was. She felt like he was her brother, so she just expressed it. She said finally there was a result after such a long wait. She was feeling a happy floating sensation inside. Hearing this, Jinta seemed to remember something. He quickly softened his attitude and gently patted Natsu's head, told her to wait at home for him. This time, Natsu obediently followed without resistance. Suzune refuses, saying no. Even if she won't harm her, she's sure about her brother. Everyone was surprised by Jinta's actions. He seemed pretty skilled at this rite. That afternoon, the crowded street was bustling. He crawled from one stall to another. His goal was to ask around about a man named Akisu. On his way back, he suddenly froze in place. Countless images of the demons flooded his mind, but he couldn't chill for long before the other guy tracked him down and even invited him out for a brotherhood drink. He saw the other guy start asking his name and age, the man in yellow. The man in yellow quickly realized a big fight was coming, smiled mysteriously, then poked his chest twice, signaling a battle between two demon slayers fighting for their livelihood. The demoness softens but then uses a stronger method, touching Suzune's forehead with one finger, causing visions to appear in her eyes that make Suzune uneasy. Next, the other guy pulled out two balls of pitch-black energy and introduced himself as Akasu III. Then he slammed both hands into the ground, causing the shadows to creep out and form demonic dogs surrounded by dark energy. He ordered his demonic dogs to charge an attack. Jinta immediately drew his sword and beheaded the first dog, making the other two hesitate. Seeing this, Akasu praised his opponent's skill, but confidently said with his current power, Jinta had no chance against his demonic dogs. At that, the remaining demonic dogs all rushed forward, but just 3 precise strikes from Jinta took them all down cleanly. However, they revived as if nothing had happened, meaning this was a battle of attrition. At that moment, Jinta used stealth to block the demonic dog's sight. She asks what's happening. The demoness says her power is clairvoyance, able to show others the future. Akisu looked amused by this skill, but since these are dogs, his demonic dogs had extremely sharp senses of smell and hearing, so he thought invisibility wouldn't change the situation. Jinta agreed and prepared another move to turn the tables. Suddenly, a stealth attack caught Akisu off guard, knocking him down and rolling him on the ground. Akisu looked confused why Jinta had 2 skills and asked him to calm down and wait for a moment. Of course, Jinta ignored him and struck hard but hit his decoy instead. Immediately, the demonic dog swarmed to bite him. The dog controller introduced this as a one-sided fight, then apologized, saying it had to end here. But just as Akisu was about to leave, Jinta suddenly appeared unharmed, shocking him and making him wonder why he wasn't excited at all. She only sees it briefly. Suzune says she's lying. How could Shizuru betray her brother? Jinta praised the dog deity, saying it was truly formidable with power comparable to the demons that cause chaos, both strong and clever in using Saizen Jie. Akisu completely bowed in respect, conceding defeat to Jinta, but said he wouldn't kill him because there were still questions to be answered. He said if Jinta was willing to speak, his life would be spared. Otherwise, there was no choice but to devour him and seize his memories. The dog deity's controller reluctantly agreed to reveal the truth, knowing he couldn't resist. He commented that Jinta hadn't fully shown his true strength yet, so fighting more would be pointless. Hearing this, Jinta withdrew his demon hand and indicated he wanted to talk. Akisu chuckled lightly, calling Jinta too honest, then warned that someone like him was easy to deceive. Next, Akisu asked permission to recall the dog deity and promised he had no intention of escaping. After finishing, he offered to hold a formal ceremony for the dog deity another time, then began explaining the nature of his power. He introduced the dog deity as actually a Fuzang Shen. The demoness says if she doesn't believe her, she can come and verify. It's because of her brother, listen because of him. Then he asked if Jinta understood them. According to Akisu, the object's vibration contains emotions and feelings, and those feelings are the source of its power. If Jinta can borrow flesh to transform into a demon, then it's not strange that the emotions within an object can condense into a demon's form. Jinta asked if Akisu could also transform other emotions and memories within objects into demons. The controller confirmed that he created the Fuzangshen not as a sorcerer using divine generals like other Onmyoji, but as a user of Fuzangshen. When asked about his title as the 3rd generation, Akisu explained he wasn't from a demon-slaying family, but belonged to a school. Originally, Akisu was just an ordinary craftsman, but his exceptional skill infused souls into the items he created. It wasn't by chance. Because of this, he developed the art of controlling Fuzangshen by turning object souls into yokai. After his retirement, his disciples inherited the name Sumgozo, and the current dog deity controller is the 3rd generation. He emphasized that Akasu Samagozo was simply a craftsman not from a demon-slaying clan. Then Jinta asked about Akisu selling a hairpin to a woman yesterday. Suzune, with 7 doubts in her heart, is pushed aside by the demoness. Akisu corrected that he didn't sell it, he gave it as a gift. Ginta described the woman Natsu After pinning the hairpin in her hair, she immediately transformed into a completely different person and demanded to know what it actually was. Akisu replied it was just an ordinary hairpin, but then seemed to realize something. He promised to help that girl and asked Jinta to put away the dangerous weapon he was holding. Jinta asked if he could trust his words and was told it might be a lie, but for now it was the only thing he could believe. That made sense, so he accepted it. Late at night, Jinta returned home and saw Natsu waiting at the door, happily welcoming her big brother back. Jinta quietly asked if she had been waiting for him. Natsu firmly said she returned because she was sure he would come back. Jinta apologized for coming home late. Natsu gently replied it was okay and that she always believed he would return. Jinta suggested going for a walk together, and of course she happily agreed, saying she'd go anywhere as long as he was by her side. On the way, Jinta pointed to a roadside tree and explained it was a snow willow, which blooms pure white flowers like snow in spring. Meanwhile, Jinta is counterattacked and falls into the stream, but seems unhurt. Natsu admired his knowledge. At that moment, Jinta shared his inner thoughts. Silently, he confessed he disliked being called Big Brother because it made him feel like he was lost in an illusion about himself. It was an uncomfortable feeling, yet Natsu still earnestly called him by that title. Jinta choked up confessing he once wanted to protect but couldn't protect anything. Completely unable to shield anything. The vow made on that rainy night long ago shattered too easily, and in the end, he couldn't fulfill his role as a brother until the very last moment. Then he declared he was no longer Shinta, and maybe had never truly been Shinta, that he was siblings with Natsu and Suzune. Natsu quickly refuted, insisting that wasn't true. She gently explained that birds seek similar waters and flowers without needing a reason. The sibling bond is the same way. No matter what happens, that connection can never be severed. The battle remains intense. Jinta, while fighting, wonders why demons harm humans. She said she had endured countless, endless years just to reach you, and she believes you will be able to return just like she did. When Jinta wondered about the meaning of returning, Natsu explained that they seek a refuge where their spirit can return, and that's why they have traveled for such a long, endless time. Jinta asked if they found it. Natsu firmly said they would because that's their reason for existing. Not knowing what else to say, Jinta returned the missing half to Natsu. Judging by her reaction, it was clear that was indeed the reason. Not much different from what Akisu had explained. He guessed Jinta carried something in his jacket pocket, and if he was right, it was a comb or a small hairpin. Probably the girl he advised Jinta to give that item to. Her friendliness helped Jinta and Suzune feel less awkward at first. Motohazu carries a sword. He is the women's guard. The other simply replies, "Because I'm a demon. It's a demon's instinct to hunt humans, nothing complicated." Back to the present, Natsu quietly calls her brother and says she can finally touch him. She whispers thanks and confesses that today the two siblings will be reunited. Then Natsu calls her brother again and says they will go together. Immediately after, Akisu appears, showing satisfaction that everything went smoothly. He explains that the girl's name comes from Kanazashi, originally an item used to worship the zero-time god. It also serves as a pin to scratch the head without messing up the hair. It's a woman's makeup tool, because the same craftsman made both Kanazashi and the girl can be considered siblings. Kanazashi is the item, the girl is a weapon for men. So more precisely, they should be called brother and sister. Akisu guesses that the girl's hairpin Jinta carries was made at the same time as Kanazashi. Jinta understands its instinct, so the opponent can't stop. That's why Kanazashi calls Jinta her brother. According to his explanation, Kanazashi contains the feelings of its late owner. That's why Natsu was obsessed with it and relentlessly searched for her brother. This is actually a quite common folk situation, and the girl's hairpin seems to have been made to become a Russian Ukraine. A line from the 10,000 Leaves collection, approaching the days of tears to the blooming rhododendron flowers. He comments that the founder of his sect really liked rhododendrons, though no one knows what journey the Kanazashi went through, who entrusted their feelings in it, but no one really knows or needs to know. The important thing is the rhododendron bird finally could be with her brother. He says he won't hold back. The demon says no need. His power is assimilation, while the demon he ate has super strength, increasing power enough to alter bones. That's more than enough. When Jinta asked how far they had flown, he was told they soared into the vast blue sky, crossing the great ocean, going far to a place where the spirit can return home. Only the rhododendron bird knows the destination. but he believes the spirit will eventually return where it always longed for. Now Ginta agrees, quietly replying, "I hope so." Just as Akisu was about to leave, Ginta asked if it was okay. When Akisu said it was fine, he remarked Ginta was too serious. Clearly, Ofu is also a demon, yet you still let him go, so he has no reason to kill you now. Also, Ginta doesn't look dangerous at all. According to that, the bull-headed demon's other arm becomes gigantic. However, he emphasized that he himself is a strange craftsman. He will kill demons when requested and fight fiercely if his life is threatened. But he absolutely has no intention to harm harmless demons. Still, he warned Ginta never to forget they are demons, beings doomed to be exterminated. No matter how kind they are, how many people Ginta saves, or how much he acknowledges them, that truth will never change. Ginta firmly said he understood that well. The craftsman said, "That's good then." Then he said goodbye. The next morning at Genshi's noodle shop, Genshi was happy everything was back to normal, but wondered why Natsu looked sad. Jinta cautiously tilts his sword blade and then flips it. Ofi explained she still remembered the past memories. Immediately understanding, he teased Natsu big brother, this big brother that, at that time, the boss brought out water to calm everyone down and celebrate Natsu returning to his true self. Today, he's treating everyone feel free to order as much as you want. What's the point of hesitating now? She shyly asked permission just to be the cuckoo bird. Meanwhile, Jinta accidentally ran into Jotaka on the road. He thought she was trying to seduce men, so he advised her to wait until evening since it was still early. She looked a bit sulky because he only cared enough to start a conversation. She currently had some rumors to verify, so she wanted to talk to Jinta for a bit. The sword charges forward, but sadly the bull-headed demon slaps his arm and sword away. Suddenly the sound of the cuckoo bird rang out while they were talking. Then Otaka complained, "What's so hot about it anyway?" She said this morning she planned to take a nap, but the cuckoo's loud call kept her awake. As a result, she couldn't fall asleep and had to go outside like this. Curious if that bird was a demon, she was told it was just a normal cuckoo perched on Jinta's nose. The next morning, at an ancient shrine, a young woman named Misaka was dressed in traditional female attire. Her mother praised her, saying she looked very fitting. Misaka wondered why her mother was so eager for her to become a woman. She felt embarrassed in case her friends came to visit. Her mother calmly explained that this was the role of women born in this shrine. She recounted the long-standing tradition that if a daughter is born, her name must include the character Da, and the female profession must never be broken. The sword strikes the bullhead, but is broken by super strength, yet he doesn't give up, not ashamed to be a swordsman. These were two traditions her grandmother had instructed to pass down through future generations. When Misaka asked why, her mother replied that even if they didn't fully understand, those who established these traditions surely saw them as deeply important. Therefore, they had to cherish and preserve them. But what truly needed preserving was not the form of the tradition, but the feelings entrusted within it. Her mother further explained that because of this, they inherited names with the character Da to ensure those ancient feelings wouldn't get lost in the endless flow of time and would always have a place to return. Now her daughter would be the one to continue passing on the feelings of someone unknown to the future. After her mother went inside to prepare the meal, Misaka suddenly felt a chill and just wanted to finish her work quickly. At that moment, a stranger came and asked if she was a woman of this place. Misaka corrected him, saying she was not a woman but Isukihime. She explained that although the exact reason was unclear, the shrine had long had the custom of calling women by that title. When asked the shrine's name, she answered it was Jinta Shrine. The other arm clenches again. The broken sword searches for a weak spot, this time aiming straight for the bull-headed demon's heart. The visitor seemed to suddenly understand something and then thanked her for truly protecting the place he could call home. As the visitor prepared to leave, Misaka asked if he didn't have anything to ask for guidance. The visitor replied he had already asked and that she had given him the answer he longed to hear. Sometime later, at a high school theater stage, most students had gathered to enjoy a unique traditional art performance. It was a play called The Courtesan on a Rainy Night. The story focused on the love between a samurai and a Jotaka during the Edo period based on the diary of that Jotaka. To explain, Jotaka was the term for courtesans in old times. Sometimes daughters of samurai or merchant families fell into that situation due to family issues or parents. This might explain why they often wrote diaries so quickly. An announcement was made that the Courtesan on a Rainy Night play by the Kuzin troupe would soon be performed. The blade pierces through, and Jinta twists hard, shouting loudly enough to shake the forest. It opened with an engaging narration by the storyteller. A samurai husband asked the name of the girl who would become his wife. Even the wife's name had to be asked. It was clear this was just a marriage to save a declining family, and the woman was merely a tool. The girl answered that she was the daughter of a samurai family. Perhaps the samurai felt insulted by her indifferent answer, so the marriage was canceled. The family lost their refuge and eventually perished. The girl's father died in sorrow, and her mother spent all day lamenting. The female lead in the play thought silently that none of this really mattered, since there was never any affection or bond between them. From then on, no one called her name anymore. She told herself there was no reason to feel down. Wasn't that what she had wanted for a long time? The bull-headed demon then falls, ending the battle. Jinta clutches his painful arm. That she didn't need a name. At this point, the scene was obscured by a curtain. Gradually, it revealed itself. The sky began to rain, causing everyone to hurry for shelter. That day, Nao found himself in the same situation and happened to share shelter with a courtesan. What was special was Nao's eyes glued to every feature of the courtesan's face. Her body blushed deeply. She looked like she wanted to devour him alive. But she was a seasoned courtesan, so she was used to this kind of thing. She even smiled comfortably, which startled Nao. He immediately bowed and apologized. After standing for a while with no sign of the rain stopping, she decided to run home in the rain. However, Nao suddenly called her back. Just a whim. Studying her carefully, it turned out he wasn't trying to hide his curiosity about her name. It's a very honorable job. The village where he lives is peaceful, and the children are very friendly. The demon says it has fulfilled its mission, recounting the clairvoyant demoness who saw. She introduced herself as Zodica and thought such a simple name was enough. Her smile blended into the night, but the night made her look otherworldly. This was the first time Nao was so captivated by a woman. He felt a bit embarrassed, quietly averted his eyes, and because of that, he realized something. A man standing right in front wouldn't be a big deal if Zodica wasn't staring so intently at him. Moreover, she said he was an old lover. The next morning, Nao went to his usual noodle shop to look for Jinta. Jinta complained about last night's heavy rain and how tough it was for him. Turns out they had both gone to drink at a bar in Asakusa. Nao still clearly remembered Jinta drinking like a machine without getting drunk, which pulled him into over-drinking too. A vision later in Kadono, a demon king will rule the demon horde and a demon god will descend. Suddenly, Ofu reminded Jinta to speak up clearly that he didn't force anyone to drink. Everyone agreed it was a fun night, so maybe it got a bit out of hand. But unfortunately, after parting on good terms, they faced a heavy rainstorm. By the way, he also asked Jinta about the job hunting he mentioned. That was true. Recently, there were rumors about demons. He planned to go to Asakusa again tonight. Night was falling. Nao was going alone to Asakusa again. He wondered what he was waiting for as he stood in the same spot as last night's rain. Now, Jotaka appeared holding an umbrella and coming close to him. So when they learned the demon god lived in Kadono, these two demons came. Demons live in Kadono. No need to ask why he came here again. Nao said he was a little worried about the figure from yesterday. Jotaka reminded him that was an old lover. Nao wanted to ask more about that relationship, but Jotaka advised him not to dig into such matters. Especially with a courtesan, Nao quickly apologized, surprising Jotaka, who found this samurai's honesty endearing. Nao didn't know how to respond, so he admitted that he actually came here to meet Jotaka. Jotaka jokingly asked if he intended to buy her, but Nao denied it, saying he just wanted to see her again. Then Jotaka apologized for joking too much and remarked that he was a strange person. Suddenly, a figure appeared, a face Nao could never forget. Jotaka whispered she didn't understand why that person came now. The story immediately makes Jinta think of Suzune. Suzune is extremely shocked. The bull-headed demon gives him a final present, a giant arm. It seemed this old lover was not just a regular client from Jotaka's past. The proof was in her voice, which carried an unmistakable intimacy. But her thin shoulders trembled clearly. Seeing her fear, Nao stepped forward to protect her. As expected, the shadow immediately disappeared. The next morning, Jinta came to the noodle shop for breakfast and chatted with Ofu. Last night he was late and missed catching a common demon despite facing it. This made him feel ashamed. It only appeared on rainy nights, so catching it depended on the weather. At that moment, Nao came in to call Jinta and said he wanted advice. Both the owner and Ofu, he confessed he was interested in a woman. Just then, Genchi and Natsu came in excitedly calling for 28 bowls of noodles. It flies up to grab Jinta's head, asking him, "You said you swing your sword to protect what's worth protecting, but if those things lose their value to protect." But the atmosphere in the shop was a bit awkward. They sat down to hear the whole story, especially Genchi, who had thought Nao had gone with the fun seeker after that drinking party. But now it turns out Nao is determined to win her over at any cost. Natsu also asked again just to be sure. This time Nao was truly determined, impressing everyone. Genchi then came up with the hero saving the damsel idea. They just needed to time it right when Jotaka was inviting customers and a gang would suddenly attack. That's when Nao would appear to save the day and score points with the beauty. However, this idea was immediately dismissed as too cliché and unrealistic. The shop owner offered deeper advice to win someone's heart. You need time to understand them, and more importantly, to let them understand you. Then where will you point your sword? The answer remains unknown for now. Meanwhile, at Kayomasa Shrine, Byakuro is being forced into sex. His own experience proved it took nearly 25 years of relentless pursuit to win the most wonderful woman in his life. He emphasized that there is no shortcut to success in winning someone's heart, so now decided to patiently wait for her at the usual spot. He also didn't forget to thank everyone for their sincere advice. Right after Nao left, Ofu suddenly grew unusually quiet. When asked, she said she felt something strange. Nao met Zoro the night before last while taking shelter from the rain under the eaves. And just now, Jinta had also talked about encountering a demon that only appears on rainy nights. But ironically, both those days were clear, with no rain at all. The story now shifts to Jotaka's perspective. She refuses, saying Jinta is still fighting, but he says that's exactly why. She reflected on the common truth that people can only see what their eyes can perceive and only imagine what their own stories have told. Yet she also reminded herself that not seeing something doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Some things exist, obviously, even if no one notices or sees them. Though Taka was still standing under the illusory rain at the usual meeting place, Nao was nowhere to be found today. The cold night made her involuntarily recall the past. Born into a prestigious samurai family and later forced into a courtesan's life, she never once regretted her former golden days. The only thing that made her heart ache was the memory of her brother who had treated her like his own little sister. Back then, he saved up money to buy her an exquisite cuckoo-shaped hairpin. But alas, now it's lost somewhere unknown. Soon after, her old acquaintance appeared again, facing that shadow. If it goes smoothly, it'll be over in one night. Or do you want him to hear your moans? Your choice. Suddenly, Taka felt as if someone was calling her. She told herself it was impossible because that person was gone, but then a voice echoed from somewhere warning her not to look. At that moment, Nao appeared, his face full of worry, asking Han about Jotaka's condition. She trembled as she said that someone was calling her. Nao tried to reassure her firmly, saying that couldn't be the person. But Jotaka stubbornly insisted she saw the old man, the one her heart still loved. Nao suddenly realized this area truly harbored entities that were not human, and the person Jotaka saw was actually a demon. He tried to convince her it wasn't her person. She seems to be overthinking and taking her womanly duty seriously, recalling that night. He drew his sword and charged at the demon in a fierce battle. Though he didn't have Ginta's top-tier strength as a swordsman of BA, he fought skillfully without a scratch. Yet in the end, the finishing blow was dealt by Ginta. Nao was so exhausted he could barely stand. Zotka hurried over and asked Han about his injuries. She couldn't hide her amazement at his extraordinary power. At the same time, she felt absolute reassurance being beside the man. Jinta took the opportunity to explain a bit about the demon from earlier. It was actually only a half-demon, more precisely an unresolved longing that couldn't become a complete demon. It awakens and reflects the longing of whoever sees it. Full of fireflies, recalling the decision that moved Jinta, she began to undress. That's why Misaka saw the old lover, and now saw his brother. The play ends here as the two curtains close on the final scene. Back to the students. Misaka, who had fallen asleep without realizing it, was awakened by her best friend on the way home. Misaka kept showing regret because she missed an amazing play, but her best friend promised to help her finish the report about it. Hearing that, Misaka took out a chocolate bar as a thank you gift in advance. The next afternoon, as promised, Kaoru brought the essay she had hurriedly written overnight for Misaka to review. Just then, Sinta from the next life arrived, so Kaoru asked, Not much was said about the play. He immediately criticized the part where Jinta was portrayed as weaker, even though he was clearly the one who defeated the demon, not now. Suzune made her first friend Shizuki. There's also a mother named Yokain. She arranged for using the reason that Byakuya was advancing, but her ideals leading to her actions made Kiyomasa. However, Kaoru defended that Zodaka, out of love for now, naturally wanted the person she loved to shine. Besides, Kaoru especially admired the scene where Zotaka, despite realizing her husband's friend was a demon, still stayed steadfast. She decided she must buy the original novel to study it more deeply. Someone even expressed the wish to read Zodaka's own narration to better understand how she viewed that special warrior friend of her husband. Continuing with the main events, time passed by. Jinta suddenly recalled the early days when his sharp sword was always stained by demon blood, losing its original steel shine. But this time, after finishing off his target, Jinta coldly and decisively sheathed his sword. He staggered slightly on the empty road, blending into the night. Meanwhile, the first snowflakes of the season began to gently fall. An old man by the roadside couldn't resist the mood and started reciting some ancient poetry. Fearful and stepped back, Byakuya didn't retreat about to kiss Kiyomasa when suddenly a female demon said, "See that?" The rise and fall of his voice unintentionally touched a deep feeling inside. While resting, Jinta happened to hear an argument coming from the neighbor's house. But strangely, it was a heartfelt debate between a father and son. Though just words exchanged, Jinta felt a warm family bond he secretly longed for. The next day, Jinta went to the market with Ofu. He casually told her about his success, killing 10 demons last night. Hearing this, Ofu worried about his exhaustion and offered to carry his bags. But Jinta politely declined, saying no true man would be so rude. Suddenly, the rhythmic chopping sound of a vendor slicing wine grapes rang out. He enthusiastically introduced a premium wine called Snow Cave and eagerly invited everyone to try it. Immediately, a curious crowd gathered and quickly placed orders. "Told you so." Then the female demon slashed me against the barricade. Byakuya and Suzune faced each other. The girl asked the princess. Seeing the wine shop crowded, Ofu was curious and wanted to try it too. But Jinta wasn't interested in noisy places. Realizing there was still much to prepare at the noodle shop, Ofu decided to leave first. That evening, Genshi hurried to the noodle shop when everyone had gathered. He apologized profusely for being late due to sudden work. Natsu glanced over and said with now there, the group was complete. Just as he finished, the young man arrived and also apologized for being late. Seeing all members present, he suggested starting the party. It was unclear what big event was happening at the noodle shop today, but the atmosphere felt different than usual. Genshi suddenly stood up and loudly spoke, but went around in circles. "Woman, why did that Jinta?" After a while, unconscious, Jinta woke up surprised that his arm had grown long. "So, this?" Losing patience, Natsu reminded him to get straight to the point. Genshi then solemnly announced that he had just been appointed store manager. So today, he wanted to hold a celebration party. Hearing this, Genshi was a bit startled but quickly promised to help the shop reach booming sales. Neo also sincerely praised his tireless efforts. While Genshi was excited, Natsu kept teasing him, killing his mood. Genshi felt a bit sad because he rarely got to boast like this. Just then, the owner brought out today's main dish. Upon opening the pot, a fragrant steam rose thickly. Genshi immediately recognized it as the famous chicken hot pot. Is the final gift. Another demon, Azuka, ran over to see. Suzune questioned Byakuya, thinking she liked her brother. The owner smiled, saying on such a happy day, a special dish was a must as a congratulatory gift to Genshi. Okay, just by bringing it to the nose, you can sense the rich aroma of a premium wine. This is the wine jar that Jinta specially prepared. He believes a special occasion calls for an equally special wine. Genshi was so moved he almost teared up, but quickly regained composure. Excitedly, he invited everyone to drink until they were drunk. The hot pot steamed amid the cheerful gathering atmosphere. In the excitement, Genshi suddenly remembered he also brought a rare bottle he just bought. He boasted that it's become very popular lately. Turns out with your sister, any man will do, huh? Byakuya replied no, which made Suzune. Jinta quietly asked if it was the Snow Cave wine. This surprised Genshi greatly. He didn't expect Jinta to know as well. As he was about to pour the wine, Natsu suddenly grabbed the bottle and said since it's his special day, she'd break the rules and have a celebratory cup. This moved Genshi to tears, as Natsu rarely treated him so kindly. Usually she teased him, but after just a sip, his expression changed. He immediately spat it all out without hesitation. This wine tastes unimaginably awful. Everyone else tasted it too and agreed it was really bad, killing the mood. Jinta also took a sip and confirmed the taste was unbearable. Seeing this, the owner brought out more wine from the shop, declaring they still had plenty. Angry, then why did the princess woman do that? She tried to endure and asked why. She said that even Natsu quickly ran off to get some snacks. Watching everyone being kind to Genshi, Natsu realized everyone in the group was nice except her, who was always harsh with him. The next morning, as usual, Jinta woke up beside the now empty humidifier. That evening, he went outside and found Yotaka standing inviting customers in. Seeing him, she started talking, saying there have been many rumors lately. She took the chance to tell Jinta about them. He sighed, saying people's hearts are becoming chaotic because demons are running rampant everywhere. She completely agreed and added that recently there was a fuss about Snow Cave wine, unclear in flavor, but strangely attracting customers. Almost all of Jotaka's customers liked it. Jinta asked what their real feedback on the taste was. She said she heard them describe it as a contradiction between rumors and reality, which made Jinta suspicious and asked her to investigate. No matter the pain and suffering, as long as her brother and the princess woman were together, Suzune sincerely wished them well. She asked if it was serious. He replied he wasn't sure, but had a bad feeling. Maybe it was professional intuition. However, he reminded her not to do anything reckless. Natsu was dragging her heavy steps. He was the one who had shown Natsu the way. But before he could say anything, she heard the familiar sound of conflict from the neighbor's house. Curious, Natsu asked what was going on. Jinta explained it was probably the neighbor's father again. Drowning in alcohol all day. Usually they spoke lovingly, but once the wine ran out, their affection turned into fights. He turned to ask Natsu why she was looking for him. It turned out Natsu said she had something to ask for his help with. The thing was, lately Genshi hadn't been able to do anything right. He spent all day and night drowning in alcohol since that party. He was always drunk. As long as he's happy, even if that arm touches someone else, I can bear it. So why then? The owner's advice failed, so he just let it slide for now. Natsu felt it would be dangerous to go to the bar alone to find him. So she wanted him to go along. She pleaded, "Jin, please come with me." Money's no issue. He said he didn't need that stuff anyway. Then he decided to help her. As soon as they arrived at the bar, a strong smell of alcohol hit their noses. Natsu saw Genshi sitting alone in the corner drinking and muttering to drown his sorrows. Angry, she ran over to scold him for neglecting work to binge drink. Drunk Genshi arrogantly snapped back at Natsu with harsh words. Furious, Natsu warned Genshi to watch his words. No matter how drunk, he shouldn't talk like that. Unexpectedly, Genshi even turned to curse at Jinta. Byakuya now understood everything Suzune had liked Jinta for a long time, which was why she remained a child forever. He even lunged to hit him. Unable to take it, Jinta threw a punch that knocked him out cold. Natsu worried that Ginta was too exhausted, but he thought it might be better if he just vomited it all out. Seeing that the drunk guys in the bar showed irritation and decided to teach him a lesson. Natsu feared things would escalate. He told her to close her eyes. It would be over soon. The weak attackers rushed at him quickly, striking with bare hands, delivering swift and precise blows. Each guy only lasted one punch. Who could stand after the second hit? The thugs even dared to recklessly attack Natsu. Jinta had to protect her while not wanting to draw his sword here. At that moment, an opportunist threw a bottle straight at Natsu. The siblings, Jinta and Suzune, to stay in the village. Yokain always stays in the shrine because she is an Isukihime, the wife of the fire god. Yes, but the unanswered question was why she truly returned Jinta's feelings, which sounded so contradictory. Suzune asked. Natsu thought he could handle it alone. He said someone had already stepped in to help. It turned out to be Akisu Sumgozo. They greeted each other warmly. Zenji had also regained consciousness, and seeing Natsu struggled to get up and apologize. Natsu told him there was no need to say anything. Everything was fine now. But Zenji still felt guilty for the harsh words he said to her. However, Natsu believed those words weren't her fault. She didn't represent his true self. She was a bit sad, but knew he always respected her. Natsu advised him not to worry. Nobody argues with a drunk person. What's that supposed to mean? I got everything I wanted, yet I threw it all away for a worthless guy. How dare? Genshi said he felt very out of sorts then. Natsu agreed, saying he even had the nerve to hit someone. He said his mind was foggy, leaning on people, but feeling uncomfortable. Then suddenly he got really annoyed with Natsu and Jinta. He truly didn't understand why he said he hated him. Natsu told him to rest first. While they talked, the ramen shop owner came by. Seeing Genshi, he bowed quickly. The owner just said he was usually loud. Genshi could only mumble an apology. The owner sternly warned him not to repeat it. Then he told him to work hard to regain everyone's trust. Akisu was at Jinta's house and heard the drunken father next door arguing. I do that. Suzune painfully removed the cloth covering her face, bursting into an unstable laugh. When Byakuya tried to speak, she said. He smiled, saying Jinta's title as a demon slayer had become pretty famous lately. Jinta replied it was just a name people gave him. Then he asked why Akisu had come. Akisu said a strange case recently happened. An older brother killed his younger brother. That wasn't uncommon. But then several similar cases occurred, prompting him to investigate. The first case involved the younger brother buying a rare liquor for the older brother. While drinking together, tragedy struck. The other cases followed the exact same pattern. The perpetrators all drank the same liquor, an expensive Edo sake called Snow Cave. He was trying to trace its origin. Shut that damn mouth of yours. The female demon took the chance to boast, saying, the two men searched together but found no new clues. Akisu noticed that at the crime scenes often appeared a girl flitting like a bluebird, but he thought she was unrelated. While walking, they found a suspicious blood trail. The Snow Cave liquor seller had been killed. Jinta noticed the shelf was empty of Snow Cave bottles. Akisu keenly spotted a shelf with no dust showing it was used frequently. It seemed the culprit, unable to find what he wanted, resorted to murder. Jinta concluded the killer was definitely after Snow Cave's sake, but killing over a few bottles was extreme. Akisu thought the culprit lost all reason and was no longer normal. Suddenly both noticed something odd and quickly took down demons emerging from the shadows. I told you, that priestess is awful. She betrayed Suzune's brother, yet lives peacefully protected while her brother. As they stepped out of the bar, snowflakes began to fall again. Akisu remarked it had been snowing a lot lately, and in the distant white snow, a familiar figure was walking unhurriedly, surely someone Jinta knew. The next morning at the familiar street corner, Akisu yawned and grumbled about his sleep being disturbed by noisy neighbors. At dawn, Jinta didn't know what to say, just silently nodded in agreement. Suddenly, at ramen shop number 3, the peaceful atmosphere shattered with increasingly heated arguing. A man spoke up provocatively, daring if anyone had a complaint. The situation got so tense, the boss had to shout for everyone to stop. Just then, Akisu and Jinta appeared, their presence instantly changing the mood. The atmosphere shifted as the big troublemaker loudly challenged, asking which AI Akisu was. Someone nudged him and whispered that it was best not to mess with this guy. Is still naively fighting. Byakuya tried to advise Suzune not to listen to the demon, but it was hopeless. The demon grabbed the arm. They even pointed out the troublemaker looked older, but was probably much younger than Akisu. But that guy didn't listen, turning the verbal confrontation into action. Amazingly, Akisu easily neutralized the troublemakers. Akisu complained that he didn't hold back at all. But Jinta casually replied he had restrained himself a lot. Despite being outnumbered, their opponent was defeated. The next troublemaker stubbornly refused to back down. He even roared a threat to kill Jinta. Jinta immediately struck again, knocking him out cold. However, both stood up moments later as if nothing happened. A desire to witness the power of demons and gods, a power full of darkness. At this moment, it gathers. Their eyes turned completely white like they were possessed. It was Akisu's turn. He pulled out some shells from his pocket and trapped the two troublemakers in an illusion where they were overwhelmed. This scared them into retreat. Then he explained the funeral spirit fusion, a new illusion technique that lets AIs see something specific they desire. When asked what he showed that guy, Akisu just smiled and advised it was better not to know. After the conflict ended, Ofu thanked Akisu for his help, though Akisu humbly said he did little and just watched. The group decided to get noodles to ease the tension. Later, Natsu came to the shop and confided in Jinta that Genshi was almost fired by her father, so he's been working hard all morning. When asked about Genshi's situation, Natsu said nothing special. It seemed the previous day's incident was simply caused by alcohol and erupts, causing Byakuya and Kiyomasa to collapse unconscious. Appearing now is long golden hair, Suzune returns to her true age. Overall, things were returning to normal. Now Natsu asked to leave early to buy wine to calm her father down. However, Jinta advised her against it. He knew Natsu planned to gift the snow cave wine her father drinks every night. This wine is quite mysterious, so he suggested switching to a different kind. But Natsu was a bit stubborn, saying the advice sounded just like her father's, though she thanked him and promised to be careful. After she left, Akisu sighed, remarking that a sparrow will always be a sparrow, far from becoming a clam. That evening, Ginta and Akisu met Jotaka to discuss their assigned mission. Seeing Ginta with a companion today, she teased him playfully. Akisu replied that was the skinny, carefree guy and told her to just ignore him. And true identity, a female demon foretold to be an incredibly beautiful demon god. Suzune then says she will kill Byakuya herself. Jotaka reported that all the Snow Cave wine had been bought up by a shop in Kusama-e and distributed across Edo. About its origin, the shop owner only hinted it was divine wine from a sacred spring. Akisu laughed, saying the owner must have stepped out of a fairy tale. Jotaka said the owner would restock the night after tomorrow, so Jinta could inquire then. Jinta agreed and paid, but she still had one bonus piece of info. She heard there's a blonde girl who often frequents that place. Apparently, she's a foreigner. Hearing this, Jinta reacted much more sharply. Jotaka was startled and asked if he knew anything about that girl, but only met terrifying silence. The next morning, the neighbors greeted the day with curses mixed with sounds of furniture being smashed. She can also use that spiritual sword. If killed by the thing she worships, surely the princess and women would be satisfied, right? Suddenly, Jinta and Akisu heard the eldest daughter's desperate screams. They rushed out and were horrified to see the old man. The neighbor had turned into a demon and just hurt his own daughter. The demon lunged at Jinta, but he easily dodged. Dodging, he countered with smooth sword strikes and finally finished it cleanly. Akisu nodded in approval. The rumors about him really were reliable and solid. Both understood the cause was definitely that wine. Meanwhile, Natsu's father lifted a cup to drown his sorrow when she ran in, poured wine, and asked if he was still mad at her. He sighed. Saying that I expected too much is just because I did, but you see Natsu is still young, so there's still hope to save him. Natsu asked if you would forgive him. You replied not necessarily, but you'd watch his behavior. See how he acts. You believe everyone has moments of recklessness in youth. Natsu tossed the question back, asking if you were like that too. Only the village chief and the guard Motohazu have permission to meet her. She says a wife must remain pure and not interact with mortals. As for Kaido, it's still effective. She quickly carries the fainted man away. Tell Suzune, but you brushed it off saying you have amnesia. Now don't say more, just that youth. Youth means falling down but knowing how to get back up. Throwing tantrums is just tantrums. Parents have to be a refuge where children can return to, and you wanted to tell that to Natsu. Hearing this, Natsu asked, if she could live her life her own way, you smiled and said she was free to do so, you'd take the burden. So Natsu was very happy and nodded in agreement. But she didn't forget to remind you to drink less, yet the father was happy to have his daughter pour him a drink. So he decided to have a few more cups, and of course he remained faithful to Tuyet Dong. Meanwhile, at the old liquor merchant's house, a figure just appeared. It was a girl with blazing red eyes and golden hair calling herself Sira. She made the old owner break out in sweat when she asked if he was interested in the art of making people fall into sin. In every person's heart, there are dark clouds and stagnant pools, no matter how much they try to hide them. She described how, Suzune, take your time staying here. Suzune had drawn her sword, now her terrifying face. As said, the nature of a demon is a lone hunter. It stirs up negative feelings like jealousy, lust, and pride to muddy the purest souls. And then hatred like Tuyet Dong would stain their hearts white. That's why it's called Tuyet Dong. Then she wondered if she had been exposed. Back to the old owner, despite being threatened by Siri. He was still very eager. He happily hugged the bottles of Tuyet Dong, ambitious that with this stock, he would soon become the top merchant in Edo. While he was laughing joyfully, Jinta approached and asked about him. The old owner recognized him as a returning customer, someone who had helped him exterminate demons, but still spoke as if Jinta was trespassing unlawfully. Jinta coldly replied he had business to ask and would leave right after. He asked about Tuyet Dong liquor. Surely the old man was selling it right. Akisu had appeared earlier and after some investigation, confirmed that this room was full of Tuyet Dong. Jinta pressed the old man on where he got the liquor, but he refused to say because it was his secret business route. Seeing the old man was talkative, Jinta decided to add some steel spice. It took me so much effort to restrain her. He was now running full speed to the shrine. To make the conversation easier, meanwhile Natsu was still trying to persuade her father to drink less, yet he invited his daughter for a glass. Though hesitant, she agreed to take a small sip. It was bitter and strong, yet the father praised it as delicious and asked if she agreed. Meanwhile, Jinta told the old owner that recently there have been many murders all linked to Tuyet Dong. Clearly, it's not an ordinary liquor. He demanded the old man reveal its origin. The old man claimed he got it from Mount Oyama, where there's a spring that flows with liquor. He just scooped it up and sold it. Jinta still didn't hear any honest answer from him. The old man kept insisting he was telling the truth. So, where does the liquor really come from? The old man said he didn't know, only that a blonde girl told him the liquor would cause people to fall into sin. She said the more you drink, the more it swallows your heart with hatred. Jinta angrily said, "Then why do you still sell it?" The old man casually replied that drunken madness is common, and if it's profitable, he'll do it. Akisu concluded this guy is just greedy for money. As soon as he pushed open the door, he shouted, looking for Byakuya and Suzune. Byakuya heard and immediately ran to Jinta, but right after she embraced him one last time. Investigation was useless. The cause is Tuyet Dong, so they need to go to Mount Oyama to find out. The old man asked what they planned to do. Akisu replied, they have to fix this problem. They can't let people be in danger. The old man tried to stop them, but Jinta angrily grabbed him and demanded he spill everything quickly, saying someone's about to meet their maker. Akisu hurriedly stopped Jinta with a punch to the mouth. He asked, "Do you know anything about that blonde girl?" He noticed whenever she was mentioned, Jinta couldn't stay calm. "Do you know anything about that blonde girl? I noticed you lose your composure every time she's mentioned." The master warned the old man to stop drinking, but he yelled he couldn't let those two steal his sake jars. But having drunk too much, his body immediately transformed into a horrifying demon completely consumed by hatred. Ginta said angrily, "That tavern owner is truly despicable. He even gave that sake to kids as an experiment." She spat blood, her head fell off. Suzune appeared behind holding that head. Being treated like this is not unfair. He also used his sword to strike back, but the body seemed unusually tough. Ginta's sword couldn't cause any damage, and he was even punched back several steps. Seeing him look weary, he said he would back him up. Two skilled fighters teaming up, but a bit out of sync. Yet neither could even scratch the demon's skin. Akisu realized this demon was strong from the start. Something very illogical. Jinta guessed this was definitely planned. That stream was created by Shizuru, and she used this demon to block AIs from seeking the truth. Akisu asked what kind of demon it was. Jinta struggled to hold back his eyes full of resentment. Akisu wondered why Jinta was in such a hurry. Happily welcoming Jinta back, asking, "You're not hurt, right?" Jinta had no strength to answer. He replied there was no time left because Chinatsu was drinking non-stop at home and might have finished the whole bottle of Snow Cave liquor. Akisu understood how serious this was. He decided to take on the demon. Jinta worriedly asked if he could handle it. Akisu felt underestimated, but said he wasn't someone to take lightly. He told Jinta to go to Natsu immediately. Seeing Jinta hesitate, he added that he was also top tier. This demon wouldn't be able to touch him anytime soon. Seeing Akisu's determination, Jinta quickly left. Akisu decided to use his trump card. He summoned the spirit Chung, the deputy Tang God demon. As it appeared, bolts of lightning surrounded it, making the demon retreat in fear. In his eyes appeared all past memories, the scene of her being stabbed to death by Suzune, a brutal trauma. Jinta immediately drew his sword and charged at Suzune, but she dodged. Akisu would let these two giants handle the fight. Meanwhile, Natsu and his father, still unaware of the danger, happily competing in drinking. Now Jinta was running at top speed. Perhaps Long hoped he'd arrive in time, and somewhere Shizuru seemed prepared, waiting for Jinta. Meanwhile, Jinta was sprinting full force toward Natsu's house. But when he arrived, the scene before him made his heart stop. Natsu was curled up in fear in a corner, horrified to see his beloved father transforming into a grotesque demon. At the moment the demon's hand reached out to his daughter, Jinta arrived just in time, delivering a powerful punch that sent the demon flying back. However, Natsu remained overwhelmed by extreme fear. Asked Jinta, "Why do that? Are you not well?" Jinta asked, "Are you Suzune?" She confirmed he asked, "Why did you do that to Yakuza?" When Jinta drew his sword, the steel blade gleamed coldly. The girl panicked and begged him to stop because it was her father. The demon roared fiercely then. The sound echoed with full hatred and pain. Meanwhile, even at the tavern, he felt uneasy having to strike the killer. Imagine how much more Jinta had to endure facing an even more difficult situation. Back at Natsu's house, before each demon attack, memories of the father and son's happy times flashed in his mind. For that reason, he couldn't bring himself to strike. Mercy toward the enemy was cruelty to himself. And he paid the price with a heavy blow from the demon which he knew was controlled by Shizuru. Suzune asked back, "What's with that face? You should be happy since I killed the princess woman." Jinta realized he had given up too much. He swallowed all emotions to become nothing but a demon slayer. He once thought he had become a bit stronger, but now it was his human heart that made him weak and powerless. Jinta felt so exhausted he just wanted to give up. Giving up everything, but then Isuzu's words echoed in his mind. "Just be yourself, be strong, and your path will open." Jinta immediately stood up sharply, his eyes burning with determination. Even Natsu could tell what was about to happen. Jinta grabbed the remaining bottle of snow cave liquor. He downed it all at once, then threw it aside. Those words confused Jinta. Suzune explained, "Byakuya took someone else. She pretended to love him. He betrayed you so badly, you don't need to be sad." Though still bland, it helped him stay a bit more alert. Jinta refused to let himself fall here. Natsu absolutely cannot be killed by his own father. Although he hates this feeling deep down, he has no other choice. Jinta's entire body transformed into a half-demon form, terrifying Natsu. Once again, he feels his master's life is truly a tragedy, a wife humiliated by demons, then killed by the demon daughter she gave birth to. The son then took the demon daughter's hand and vanished from the world. In the end, he himself became a demon. Jinta no longer needs to ask his name, for demon slaying is his duty and fate. Finishing his sentence, Jinta charged forward with his power greatly enhanced. He grabbed the demon's head and slammed it hard onto the floor. Even Shizuki hasn't seen her mother for years. In the third year of the Tenpu era, 1800-532, Jinta began training under Moto. Jinta understood, but told Suzune to stop talking. She was surprised and asked, "You're still sad? Still sad about the woman's death?" After hearing that, though she was already dead, Suzune told Jinta, "You won't have to see Byakuya marry someone else anymore." Both moved out into the yard to continue their fight. Jinta would show his final respect to his master by ending this battle quickly, so much so that he recalled his own painful past. He remembered his vow to become strong to protect everyone. But if he couldn't protect them, he would use these very hands to end it all. Jinta whispered a farewell before landing a decisive blow, and thus the demon who was Natsu's father passed away, his body cold and lifeless. When Jinta turned back, he saw Natsu still there. He wanted to run over and comfort her, but she suddenly stepped back, trembling. "You're the one who killed my father." "Don't come near me. You look like a demon." Those words stabbed Jinta's heart. "That's good." She then said, "Jinta, let's go home. I'm tired." Jinta asked, "Tired?" Right after that, Akisu also returned, seeing Jinta walk out with a dazed face. He knew he'd just been through an extremely difficult situation. Jinta whispered in despair that he'd never wanted to give up like this before. Akisu understood that for someone like Jinta to say that it must be serious. Jinta almost realized there was only one way left: find the root of everything and destroy it completely. The next morning, the two prepared their gear and set off for Mount Oyama. After nearly a whole day of walking, Akasu was exhausted and worn out. He begged Jinta to slow down. It turned out they had walked. For several days, Akisu had been just an ordinary person, no match for Jinta. He was about to break. Raising them, killing Byakuya, destroying everything, and now that's all you can say. Suzune didn't understand, asked why. Jinta said, "Right, she's no longer the Suzune I knew." He said to him, "If we want to find the root, wait until night. Night would be better, right, Akisu?" Akisu guessed that Jinta must have figured out what the snow cave was by now, right? Even he had some vague understanding. Jinta answered, "Usually to make sake, you have to steam rice, ferment it, then mix with water. Even if some steps are skipped, the basic process is still necessary." Jinta thought the snow cave must be made similarly. Akisu thought Jinta was somewhat naive, believing just throwing yeast into a stream could make sake. Jinta then said, "There's a type called infused sake, made by soaking fruit spices or herbs to add flavor." Akisu reasoned whatever is soaked must have the effect of turning people into demons, and the one doing it is the blonde girl. Jinta added, "Maybe the stream contains the remains of people who died unjustly." Akisu was so tired his legs and hands felt numb, almost frozen. He groaned, never expecting that, just to find out about the snow cave. He'd have to pay such a heavy price. Still, he came all the way from the capital to uncover the truth about the snow cave. Immediately swinging his sword, charging at her, dodging. But even when Jinta struck the blade, it broke. Jinta laughed bitterly. But he never expected to suffer like this. Just then, Akisu noticed a strange flower, blooming in the harsh winter. Jinta saw it and immediately recognized it as the white snow poppy. Akisu asked if it was related. He explained the first time he tasted the snow cave, he found its flavor very mild. But at the same time, it gave a strange nostalgic feeling. He thought that was natural for a sake. Made from hatred, but isn't it also the sorrow of the departed? This kind of sake is made from lingering feelings. He really couldn't imagine that those who passed carried these feelings with them. Even if they became demons, maybe that wasn't their original intention. Akisu suddenly smelled something strange. Jinta told him to keep going, but he decided to rest here and stop. Now he just wanted to play the role of a weak human. Jinta heard this and had no choice but to continue alone. The higher he climbed, you see more and more white snow poppies. Finally, you find the stream. Jinta wades into the freezing water. To raise them, kill Byakuya, destroy everything, and then she can only say that Suzune doesn't understand, and asks why. Jinta says, right, she's not the Suzune I know. And then you meet your old friend Isukihime, now in Shizasu's form. You whispered, did she create that demon-transforming wine? Just to lure you here. No, you blame yourself for not protecting her body from being taken, but now you've found her. White snowflakes gently fall on the stream, reflecting the image of the girl Jinta loves. She softly apologizes for causing you pain just to see you again. Jinta replies that as her protector swinging his sword for her is only natural. She smiles and thanks him. Jinta takes the chance to confess the love he's kept buried for so long. She says her final goodbye to Jinta, and then everything fades away. Jinta can finally let his beloved rest in peace. It's all over at last. Aksu says rumors of demons and fights have also calmed down recently, so the issue seems resolved. The demon threat and brawls have quieted down for now, so it can be considered solved. He guesses the root cause has disappeared, so the snow cave project in Edo has fizzled out. Jinta also hears villagers talking about it. Immediately, he swings his sword at the opponent, dodging, but even when Jinta strikes the blade, it breaks. Jinta laughs bitterly. Akisu continues the recent war chaos has unsettled people, but he thinks we just need to focus on demon extermination because the flow of the air is something we can't change. Jinta notes he said, that's right, but you're still curious about the blonde girl. Akisu thinks she must be Miyu's owner, but what Miyu truly is, he can't figure out yet. But first, he thanks Jinta for the meal and cheekily reminds him to pay the bill. Then, Akisu packs up to return to the capital. He invites Jinta to drop by his place if he gets the chance. Jinta is happy to, but when that chance will come, no one knows. Then Jinta heads to a noodle shop and orders a bowl of 8 to warm his stomach. The owner says business has been slow due to recent events, but he's glad to see Jinta and mentions that Natsu hasn't stopped by lately. Jinta tastes the noodles and tells the owner it seems a bit bland today, a little bland. The owner replies he cooks it the same every day. Jinta says it must be his perception then. The two men look at each other and understand the issue silently. That said, Jinta still finishes the whole bowl. As he's about to leave, Ofu says to wait a moment. She will, thinking he's pathetic with nothing left. Suddenly, his grafted arm radiates dark energy and he says, that's right, I still have it, but I hate everything, hate to the core. Suzune is terrified. See him off. On the way, she cautiously asks if he's okay, having heard that he's been through a lot. Jinta apologizes for making her worry. She explains she only cares a bit because he's a regular customer. Suddenly she stops and says she'll only see him this far. She turns to leave, but after a few dozen steps, she stops again. Ofu asks if Jinta remembers when she told him about the Tui Huang flower. Hearing this, Jinta breathes a sigh of relief. Seeing this, Ofu says nothing more and quietly walks away. Jinta clearly remembers it's a flower that can bloom through the harsh winter. Signaling the coming spring, Jinta silently thanks the girl for always comforting him. It seems he has lifted a burden from his heart, turning away with a somewhat lighter step. At the stream on Oyama Mountain, Shizuku stands there whispering to herself that her body, she tightens. Her hand-sharp nails digging deep into the white poppy she holds, mixing blood with the flower in her hand. She asks Jinta, why do you look at me like that? She only killed that prostitute. Jinta shouts, "Shut up, full of it." Blood dissolves into the flowing water. Looks like this little sister is about to start another twisted game with her older brother. Back at the Southern Heaven Temple number 11, a warm but somewhat sorrowful scene in the shrine room. The queen keeps complaining that the weather is turning cold, wishing for a fireplace to warm the place. Jinta, still quite young, then realistically objects that it would cause trouble if a fire broke out, and the room's design makes ventilation difficult. Hearing this, she teases him, asking if he plans to warm himself with her. Jinta bluntly replied she was talking nonsense and was still too young, then immediately stood and stepped out from behind the curtain. Silently stroking his head and calling Jinta affectionately, she claimed to be his big sister and teased that without her, Jinta wouldn't be able to do anything. Jinta could only grumble back that clearly she was the younger one. What an incredibly cute scene, nothing like a bodyguard and a woman at all. A few days later, at a formal meeting, the woman reported something very strange in the river, so she ordered Jinta, a demon hunter. "I still have him, but I hate everything, hate it to the core." Suzune was very scared to uncover the truth and destroy it. Of course, Jinta didn't refuse, but Elder Asano of the village took the opportunity to announce something important. He said the bodyguard and the woman were protectors personally selected by Princess Isukihime and served as guardians for the entire village. Jinta currently serves as a bodyguard, and his swordsmanship is even recognized as superior to his predecessor Motoharu. However, Elder Asano also pointed out a worrying fact. Since the last famine, the number of demons has significantly increased. There are currently rumors of a bizarre monster hiding near the Madoji River. At the same time, many strangers have been quietly infiltrating this land of Kado. Traditionally, the princess only has one bodyguard, but he believes this is no longer suitable for current circumstances. Therefore, he proposed appointing a second bodyguard to protect the princess even when Jinta must leave for missions. The chosen one is none other than... She asked Jinta, "Why are you looking at me like that? She only killed that prostitute." Jinta shouted, "Shut up," angrily. His son, Kiyomasa. Kiyomasa stepped forward, bowed respectfully, and formally introduced himself. Elder Asano added that although Kiyomasa's swordsmanship can't match Jinta's, it is sufficient for the bodyguard role. More importantly, this decision was not made unilaterally by him, but had the princess's approval. When asked, Princess Gintoki confirmed the demons are indeed increasing and must be dealt with. The elder asked Gintoki if he had any objections. Gintoki replied that if it ensures the princess's safety, he has no objections from now on. The two bodyguards will protect the princess and Kadono land together. Kiyomasa then gently patted him in a friendly way, expressing hope for his support. Jinta suddenly recalled when he was a kid, playing with friends, only daring to watch from afar and running away when caught. After the meeting, the princess called Jinta back, asking him to stay a moment to talk. Learning swordsmanship, he was easily defeated and felt discouraged, but Moto comforted him that nothing can be changed. Suzune stepped back in pain, thinking Jinta had finally abandoned her. She believed only he would stay by her side forever. Before he departed on his demon-slaying mission, everyone gradually dispersed, leaving only Jinta and the princess. Jinta frankly told the princess that no matter what others think, he remains her bodyguard and has no intention of giving up that position. The princess responded as a young lady who would repay his determination. She advised him to act immediately once Kiyomasa returns and reminded him not to be overconfident, warning him to be careful to avoid injury. Her caring manner was like that of an older sister, making Jinta laugh and say that instead of worrying, she should just pray for him. That night when he got home, Suzune ran up excitedly to welcome him, almost bursting with joy, but Jinta suddenly announced he had accepted a demon-slaying mission. Suzune again showed worry and disappointment, but she really was heartbreakingly understanding, trying to smile brightly despite feeling sad as she sent him off. Before leaving, Jinta suddenly asked Suzune if she remembered Kiyomasa. She looked confused and asked, "Who's Kiyomasa?" Jinta explained he's the elder's son, but Suzune still. If that's the case, she didn't need anything else and no longer trusted AI. If Jinta rejected her, nothing else mattered. Couldn't recall. Jinta gave up blaming himself for such a weird question and set off on his mission. Alone, he approached near the Madoji River, where the fog was so thick he could only see about 2 meters around. After some time, Jinta returned to the princess's shrine, looking as if the trip had yielded no significant results. Kizu appeared and teased Jinta, advising him to take his duties as bodyguard more seriously. Jinta snapped back that he knows what to do and questioned why Kiyomasa wasn't carrying out his duties. Kiyomasa casually replied that patrolling like this is part of the job. He added with a hint of sarcasm that if he had to guard, he'd rather admire Byakuya's sleepy face. Byakuya being Princess Isukihime's real name in her bedroom, than hear such reverent address. Dian immediately got angry, warning Kiyomasa to watch his words outside the shrine and not disrespect the princess. He must not call the princess disrespectfully like that. Not this world, not even him. Just go away, Suzune. Then she threw a tantrum like a child until... But Kiyomasa calmly replied that the princess allowed him to speak that way. The two quickly went to report the situation to the princess. Princess Jinta bowed, apologizing for failing to find even a trace of the monster. Princess Isukihime gently comforted him, saying it's not a problem. It may not be solved overnight, and rushing would only make things worse. She declared that the safety of the entire Kadono region depends on Jinta's sword. Hearing this, she believed that the Yakuza are too lenient, and when they fail, Jinta must be reprimanded. She's a difficult princess type, so she reminded Kiyomasa about her attitude. Then she ordered Jinta to rest and recover before continuing the investigation. The goal was to clarify the existence of the monster. Meanwhile, Kiyomasa would continue the protection mission. Kiyomasa patted his chest, assuring Jinta not to worry, because he would protect him from the Yakuza. Later, when outside, he threw Jinta a manju cake bought from a street vendor. But this cake wasn't for Jinta. It was for Suzune because she hardly ever goes outside and would surely crave sweets. Jinta shouted at her again to stop, but she had made up her mind and charged to attack Jinta this time. Jinta immediately showed suspicion and questioned why Kiyomasa cared about Suzune and what their relationship was. Kiyomasa replied it was nothing special, but he could understand her because they were similar. He said he understood Suzune's pain, though he admitted he wasn't as strong as she was. Finally, Kiyomasa told Jinta that before thanking him, Jinta should apologize to Suzune for letting her endure loneliness. With nothing left to say, Jinta went home, left the cake beside Suzune, then continued his investigation, deciding to venture deeper upstream this time, in the gloomy forest. He suddenly sensed an enemy's presence, and then a shadow appeared at lightning speed. It attacked suddenly. But luckily, Jinta reacted just in time. He drew his sword to strike back and discovered it was a monkey-type demon. Immediately after, Jinta stepped back to prepare a forward strike, cornering the enemy. However, the demon seemed to realize it couldn't match Jinta head-on, so it vanished into the mist. Suddenly, as she struck Jinta's demon arm, waiting for Jinta to let his guard down, it suddenly leapt out and knocked him to the ground. By late afternoon, Jinta painfully walked back to the village, causing everyone great concern. He was immediately taken to the princess for treatment. Weakly, Jinta apologized for being seriously injured and letting the monster escape. Princess Isukihime gently assured him it was okay. Now all the able men in the village were guarding the shrine. The only thing she cared about was that he was safe. She confessed that as long as Jinta was by her side, she felt at ease despite his many wounds. They looked at each other speechless. Except for the crisp laughter that broke the awkward atmosphere, Jinta suddenly noticed a pile of new books on the shelf. Hearing from the princess, he learned they belonged to Kiyomasa. She explained that since she couldn't go outside, he often brought stories for her to read for entertainment. She added with delight that Kiyomasa even wrote books himself when she expressed interest in reading one. He got so embarrassed, his face turned bright red. Upon hearing this, Jinta suddenly fell silent, his expression darkened. The princess noticed this change, grabbed her tightly. He then threw a powerful punch that sent Suzune flying, while she clearly remembered that earlier, even with what, and asked if something was wrong. Jinta replied nothing was wrong, though he was clearly jealous. Suddenly, a terrified scream came from outside. I can't believe that demon monkey dared to break straight into the shrine. At this, Kiyomasa was being pressured dangerously by it. Luckily, Jinta arrived just in time to repel the monster and told Kiyomasa to get inside to protect the princess. Without hesitation, he launched a fierce counterattack. Long wondered why his heart was so unsettled. The demon monkey immediately retaliated. With incredible power, suddenly Jinta saw Kiyomasa's image inside it, along with a repeated voice saying, he will protect the Yakuza properly. At this moment, Jinta's thoughts were spinning, but his sword remained pointed at the enemy. He realized this was a demon. with an immense, unbelievable power. Suddenly, Jinta sees an image of Kiyomasa inside it, along with a voice repeating, "He will protect the Yakuza properly." At this moment, Jinta's thoughts whirl, but his sword remains aimed at the enemy. He realizes this is a type of yokai that exploits human weakness to attack. To dare use Jinta's jealousy against him, that's bold. Immediately, Jinta channels all his rage into his blade, delivers a powerful slash, and swears that he himself, just a cup, he hesitated to hit her. Suzune stood up again. Jinta didn't hold back and immediately flew at her with another attack. Will not be defeated. He would never be shaken by such petty emotions. When the monster disappeared, Jinta realized his true feelings for the princess. Back in the present, Jinta reflected with his demon-transformed body. Time flows slowly but never stops, not even for a moment, piling up continuously. Humans weave their long and short lives into that flow, sometimes tangled, sometimes apart. Looking at Byakuya's figure, he wondered at that moment when his sword struck the demon, what did his heart truly cut away? What did it cut away? Countless seasons have passed, eras have changed. In year 9 of the Bun era, Monday Miura was chatting with a sword vendor who remarked that a warrior's sword that's always spotless and flawless. Would it be good if it never saw real battle? The vendor said he would show him a rare sword to stir things up. Sure enough, he brought out a katana named Kaneo. Miura was immediately drawn to it, commenting it was an excellent sword. Blood spilled once more, but unexpectedly Jinta's stab was blocked by the female demon. She told Suzune, with deep curvature, thick body, and a simply straight blade, every detail showed this, was a weapon forged for real combat but still carried an unusual beauty. However, Miura admitted he had never heard of Kaneo. The vendor explained that Kaneo was one of the best swordsmiths from the Kadono Forge village. Swords engraved with his name were already rare, so only true connoisseurs knew of them. But in a way, the name Kaneo was actually quite famous. Among Kaneo's works, about 4 swords were very special. The vendor regretfully said that if Miura had come 3 days earlier, he could have shown him one of those. Miura wondered why such a famous swordsmith only had 4 special swords. The vendor revealed they were demon swords. He recounted terrifying rumors about Kaneo, that he consorted with demons and forged demon swords imbued with their power, that he married a demon and even melted his demon wife into the metal to forge swords. One of those demon swords had been here, but was bought by a priest in Edo 3 days ago. Miura asked the name of the demon sword, to run. Suzune now seemed like she was dead, hesitantly taking steps. Though Jinta wanted to stop her, the female demon held him tight, and learned it was Gadamonji. Mentioning that sword, it was currently in the hands of a strange samurai summoned by Yasuhide. Until yesterday, the vendor couldn't hide his excitement, boasting that Lord Yasuhide had specially prepared a sword just for him. Hearing this, he was left stunned and asked if it was indeed that sword. Suzune couldn't hide her pride as she drew the sword from its sheath, boasting it had been appraised by an expert who highly praised and extolled it. Her wife also expressed admiration, saying it truly was an excellent sword, which made Suzune even more excited. Meanwhile, Jinta and Nao were sitting together at their usual noodle shop. Nao started off by mentioning some interesting news. A demon sword forged by a man who married a demon wife. Although this was somewhat off topic for Jinta's usual work, he felt he should inform him. Jinta seemed quite interested in the surprising information. Nao glanced at Ofu pouring tea for Jinta and felt like they looked like a newlywed couple. Ofu was clearly enjoying it. Suzune said she hated everyone and would destroy all humans and nations indiscriminately. And don't forget, no matter. But reminded Nao not to tease her anymore. Jinta immediately changed the subject to marriage and asked how Nao's mother was doing lately. Then invited him to visit whenever free. She would definitely be very pleased. However, Jinta seemed doubtful, frankly saying he couldn't imagine her being happy to see his face. Nao assured him that wouldn't happen, so don't worry. Then Nao asked if Jinta had ever thought about getting married. Jinta immediately, almost angrily, said no, which annoyed him. As Ofu's father, he wanted his child to assertively pursue Ofu, quickly telling his father to stop talking nonsense. There are still 8 plates in the sink. Returning to the main topic, Jinta curiously asked about the mysterious demon sword story, recounting that 3 days ago at the Hatake mansion in Edo. A man named Suzune bought that sword. Something's off. When Nao asked what was strange, I realized he was clearly just a worker and an oddity in the mansion. Jinta is changing day by day, growing stronger each day. In another timeline, the queen praised how long it takes she would come back to see him. After Suzune left, the female demon laughed loudly, having finished her task. It's really puzzling that someone like him would seek a family heirloom sword, especially a cursed blade. However, Nao thought it wasn't all that unusual. He began explaining about the Tosa loyalist movement last year. Takechi, a warrior from Tosa, gathered fellow warriors to form this group. After the Black Ship incident, the shogunate's diplomacy grew weak and pathetic. These men loyalists but with radical ideas didn't just act individually, but pushed the entire Tosa domain to embrace the loyalist movement. Nao predicted the number of such warriors with these beliefs would only grow. Jinta was surprised by Nao's knowledge, and Nao explained that some Tosa samurai also lived in Edo. He continued reflecting that nowadays many no longer see swords as mere tools for their masters, but as weapons to fulfill personal ideals, so he wasn't surprised that anyone could seek a sword. Jinta coldly remarked that such a warrior's way of life was completely wrong. Nao agreed, but then confided his own worries that when he sees them, he wonders, is this really okay? Jinta angrily pulled back his demon hand, saying their job was to burn and kill to destroy everything. So why did the female demon, serving the shogunate, a place seemingly abandoning the pride of warriors, is it truly right? Just as he was about to continue, he stopped and said, "Sorry," telling Jinta to forget those words. Unexpectedly, Jinta sympathized, sharing he felt the same. Both sighed, admitting life didn't go as they wished. Then Jinta expressed a desire to see the cursed sword with his own eyes, and Nao immediately suggested they go together. Jinta hesitated slightly, but Nao insisted since he started the conversation, it was no problem. That afternoon, the two went to the Hatake mansion to find Suzune. At first, the servant seemed hesitant, saying nothing, until another man, likely the steward, stepped out to announce that Suzune was not present. Nao asked when he might return, but the answer shocked them both. Maybe he'll never come back. The steward explained Suzune had killed his wife this morning and mysteriously disappeared from the mansion. Jinta realized they'd fallen behind and decided they must find him. Just as they turned away, the steward called them back, saying Lord Yasuhide wanted to see them. They were led into a formal room. "Say otherwise, I do not fear death." She said the flow of the era was too fast, they couldn't keep up, and their refuge was stolen. Nao bowed, introducing himself as currently serving under the shogunate. As Jinta prepared to introduce himself, Hatake cut him off, saying he already knew Jinta was the demon-slaying swordsman Hatake. He gestured for him to relax, no need for formalities. Hatake revealed he called Jinta not for any big reason, but simply to witness someone with extraordinary power wielding a sword to slay demons, praising Jinta as a protector of the people from calamity. Jinta bluntly interrupted the flattery, saying Hatake surely had more important matters to discuss than chatting. Hatake smiled and admitted there was indeed a reason for calling Jinta. He made an offer for Jinta to serve the Hatake family. Jinta was surprised, saying although he was allowed to carry a longsword, he was no more than a commoner unworthy to serve a prestigious warrior family. Hatake explained this was a personal hire, so it wasn't a problem. He also pointed out that Chuda, later demons were only told in old stories, but now she was satisfied having preserved the future for her kind. Had a similar background to Jinta. Seeing Chuda's fiery red eyes, Jinta knew Hatake's words were true. Hatake then seriously shared his views. He believed the country stood at a crossroads. Diplomacy with foreign nations, though sounding elegant if continued as is, would turn Japan into a colony, the shogunate system would collapse, and the order maintained by the Tokugawa family would vanish. Believed the country was at a crossroads. Diplomacy with foreign nations may sound elegant, but if continued like this, Japan would become a colony. The Bakufu regime would collapse, and the order maintained by the Tokugawa family for so long would vanish. Continuing like this, Japan will become a colony, the Mac administration will collapse, and the order maintained by the Tokugawa family for so long will vanish. In the new era, samurai will no longer be necessary. Their existence will disappear completely. Nao tries to object, but Hatake dismisses it, saying foreign factions don't understand this. He says that even though he's retired, he still wants to protect this country, uphold Tokugawa's order and the pride of the samurai. To do that, there's no other way, but to expel foreign enemies, even if it requires any means necessary, so he wants Ginta to use his power that can defeat all. A rainstorm saved Kadono village while I did nothing at all. Opponent to protect this sacred order. Of course, Ginta would refuse the offer without hesitation. He explains he's stubborn, and matters like founding a nation or ceding territory don't concern him much. Hatake asks again, so that means... This country doesn't matter. Sao Jin replies with an interesting story long ago. There was a demon who said something similar. That demon said this country would receive civilization from outside and develop. But in the rapid flow of the era, demons would be discarded, and in the end, they would only exist in fairy tales. Hatake comments that was an interesting demon, but he also points out that this applies to Warrior Jin as well, who firmly says he can't do that. He doesn't see Hatake's methods as cowardly or cruel, but just like Hatake has his goals, Jin has his own purpose. He admits his purpose may be very ordinary and dirty compared to Hatake's lofty ideals, but to him, it's everything. Moreover, Jin says that even without a personal goal, he can't serve under Hatake because he understands the nobility of. I couldn't protect anything and screamed in pain. After some time, Jinta recovered and stepped out to meet the village chief bowing, wielding a sword against the tide of the era, but for that reason, prosperity or decline should be realized by their own hands. More importantly, Jin admits he hasn't even found a reason to swing his sword. Someone like that can't join a fight to open the future. Hatake summarizes that it's not because it goes against morality or ideology that Jin won't swing his sword, but because it contradicts his aesthetics. Jin doesn't think his actions are beautiful, but bending his will to cut something is an unbearable fall from grace. Hatake realizes this and adds, "It's pointless to argue, more so let's disband." Jin slowly stands up and declares it's time to depart because the mission to track the cursed sword is still unfinished. However, before they leave, Hatake casually mentions that Suzuki seems quite interested in a restaurant named Tomigen, where he often rambles about the people of Tosa, and someone named Takechi. On the way back, I suddenly ask Chusa why he decided to serve Hatake. By now, Chusa is more relaxed and begins telling his story. He was once cruelly betrayed by humans. Jinta announced he would leave Kadono to train himself and later destroy the demon god descending here. Or maybe he just couldn't trust them from the start. In his most desperate moment, Hatake appeared like a saving light and told him that demons and warriors are relics of the old generation, soon to be abandoned by this harsh era. In other words, they are all compatriots. For that reason, Chusa decided to serve and trust Hatake. He knows Jin would understand that. Demons and humans can't get along, but Hatake accepted him anyway. Jin appreciates that care, but he also warns that if Chusa and his faction use demon power to brutally and senselessly harm humans, he will definitely have to draw his sword against them. Hearing this, Chusa coldly replies that's his current master's wish. He won't interfere. But if Jin dares to obstruct him, he will do the same. Afterwards, Jin and Nao go to Toyama restaurant to investigate and retrieve the sword from Suzune before he causes trouble. But the difficult problem is, no one knows where he is. Nao suggests asking the people in the restaurant. The village chief asked seriously, if the demon god is real, then it is Jinta himself. He said everything must be resolved anyway. Just then, they hear two men complaining inside the restaurant that their sensei is very late. One man accidentally bumps into Jin and apologizes profusely, then generously invites both to drink as an apology. Now politely declines since they still have work to do. Jin takes this opportunity to ask if they know a man named Suzune. They shake their heads, so Jin thanks them and prepares to leave. Now recognizes the name just mentioned as from Tosa, and they refuse because they still have work to do. Taking this chance, Jinta asks if they know a man named Suzune. They shake their heads saying no, so Jinta thanks them and prepares to leave. Now realizes the man just mentioned is from Tosa and guesses they belong to a group with similar ideals. Then Jinta approaches a waitress and asks about the group sitting in the back room. The waitress says they are regular customers of the bar. They always discuss difficult topics like why our country must rise. While sipping wine, Jinta continues to ask if she knows the person called Sensei. The waitress remembers it's Mr. Takeuchi and says he is greatly admired and respected. But the chief asked if it was really okay to be consumed by hatred and kill his own sister like that. Leaving the bar, Nao curiously asked Jinta about the earlier questions. Jinta explained that he thought Suzune frequented Toyama's bar to contact that group, but it seemed not to be the case. Nao was puzzled about the contact. Regarding the Nyo party, since Suzune once served Hatake, he should have supported the shogunate and confronted the Tosa group directly. Exactly, the Tosa man said their sensei was late, meaning an important figure in their group had planned to visit the Tozama bar recently. Suzuno's shogunate supporters would act to block this, and if Hatake's intentional leak was true, then that sensei is the key figure in Tosa needing the loyalists. Suzuno's real goal was to assassinate Takechi. Nao was shocked to realize Hatake had deliberately or unintentionally leaked Suzuno's info to make him admit it himself, since he had wanted to recruit Jinta personally all along and only use the demon blade as bait. If the assassination succeeded, it would be a big deal. If it failed, at least meeting Jinta directly was achieved. Jinta said if possible, he wanted to find a path other than killing. This made the chief happy, thinking that Nao had to admit Hatake was truly a cunning man. Jinta concluded that someone like Hatake acting this way was proof the shogunate faction was backed into a corner. Maybe the shogunate really had no way out. Nao asked what they would do next. Jinta replied, if Suzune was really acting under the demon blade's influence, they couldn't ignore him. In a dark alley, Suzune muttered alone, gripping his sword tightly. He believed this blade would let him kill all the fools rallying for the loyalists, especially that hateful Takechi. He told himself he could kill as many as he wanted. Suddenly, Jinta appeared. Many shadows confirmed they wouldn't let Suzune do that. He roared wildly, swinging his sword aggressively. A sharp sword energy flew straight at Jinta, surprising him. Suzune couldn't believe Jinta survived the last strike. He screamed madly he'd slash again and again, closing in to knock the sword from Suzuno's hand. Then slowly picked it up and used assimilation to absorb the memories of a blacksmith named Kaniomi talking with his demon wife. The sword in his hand was forged from her blood. He decided to forge 3 more, all engraved with Romi's name. When asked if it would truly become a demon-powered sword, Kaniomi admitted. Watching her hair being grabbed and pulled, the little girl is then thrown into a locked warehouse, constantly apologizing. Jinta for excelling in demon slaying, never retreating before Lasat. His devotion meant the demon slain became a guardian. Even after becoming a demon, something of him remained. The chief then handed Jinta the sacred sword. He didn't know. He couldn't live long enough to see what the sword bearing their names would become after 100 years. So he asked Yumi to witness it for him, and if it really gained supernatural power, he hoped she wouldn't doubt it. Even though humans can be foolish and make mistakes, and demons can't break their own nature and sometimes conflict, he still believed demons and humans could live peacefully together. Naomi killed his wife with that sword without clear reason. Jinta sighed in frustration after watching, then put the sword away. The next morning, he told Nao everything, especially the part where Kaniomi was so bewitched by the demon blade, he killed his own wife. However, Jinta didn't think it was the blade's fault, even though it was a demon sword. Its supernatural ability was simply to launch slashes from a distance, nothing more. Nao still didn't understand. Even though Suzune really did kill his wife, Jinta recalled what everyone saw yesterday after the act. Kaniomi panicked and denied his brutal action. He deceived himself that it was the sword, the demon blade, not him. He was completely innocent. He convinced himself anyone holding the sword would. He told him to try pulling it out, and from now on he was the sword's official master. Jinta said he couldn't just pull out the sword like that. Want to slash people. The demon's sword killed his wife, and he was just a victim of its mind control, meaning that man. While Suzune has truly killed his wife, Jinta recalls what everyone saw yesterday after the act. Kaniomi panicked and denied his brutal act. He deceived himself that it was the sword's fault, the demon blade, not him, that he was completely innocent. He convinced himself that anyone wielding this sword would want to kill, that the demon blade killed his wife, and he was just a victim whose mind was stolen by it, meaning that man killed his wife simply because she was right there. That's all. He couldn't bear the terrible guilt, so he deluded himself that he was controlled by the sword. Maybe Hatake cleverly exploited this psychological weakness. As for Suzune, he's not assassinating for the country, but because he wants a justified reason to kill, so he followed Hatake. After hearing the story, but the chief said the female lineage had ended. Instead of letting the sword gather dust in the shrine, it would be better for him to use it, which would also bring peace to the deceased princess. Mentioning Yakuza, Jinta's face grew sad. The chief suddenly knelt and apologized to him. He said he knew that Jinta and the girl were connected, but when Domasa loved her too, the chief was wrong to use Kadono as an excuse. But it was for his own child that Yakuza agreed to marry him. This tragedy was because of that man, and Ra was deeply ashamed. Everything felt like it had reached another lifetime, the heartlight and easy to forgive the past. The chief said if many years later Jinta returned to make amends, he would build a shrine named after him. People and places don't have eternal lives like demons, but even if short-lived, they can leave a mark for the future. Chito Z's younger sister suddenly appeared asking Jinta if he was leaving her. He was still himself, even though he had become a demon. Sorry, Jinta said, next time make me grilled rice cakes with sauce. The demon's target is likely women. It's said they live thousands of years, but eating a woman's raw liver can grant immortality. She said to definitely come back. Time flew by, and now it was 5 a.m. The third Giavin dynasty had changed at that city. That morning, a man named Dino happily greeted his friends. He was the steward of a noble family. Inside, Dino was facing the master. Dino then went to serve. Seeing Dino reminded the master of that matter. The master told him to explain everything clearly to him. Dino then introduced himself, asking the master how much he had told Jinta. Jinta said Juju told him the master had a very precious daughter, though not blood-related. She was attacked by demons and needed those demons eliminated. That was simple. Dino was surprised and said Jinta didn't know the full details of the mission. What they wanted was for him to be the bodyguard of Miss Natsu, who just turned 13 this year. Telling Jinta that is not knowing the mission details. What they want from him is to be a bodyguard for Miss Natsu, who just turned 13 this year. Dino adds that the master loves Miss Natsu dearly, and that 3 days ago in the courtyard outside her room, a demon appeared repeatedly, demanding that she be returned to it. In short, that demon sees Natsu as its daughter and wants to take her away. At this moment, Natsu arrives to ask Dino where he's hiding, lazily. Isn't he afraid she'll tell her father? She looks quite fierce, staring at Dino. The truth is unclear, but the previous queen was devoured by demons thanks to Yokain. Luckily, Motohazu sacrificed himself to seal it away. Natsu asks Dino if he is the bodyguard her father called. Why does he look so young? Dino greets her, but Natsu says no need, just leave. This surprises Dino, who asks why Natsu says no matter what, Jinta is just a thug after money. Came here because of some weird story. Dino explains the old master wouldn't choose a thug, but Natsu brushes it off. She bluntly tells Jinta she doesn't like thugs as bodyguards and won't pay him a single coin. She orders Dino to kick him out immediately. Dino feels awkward and turns to Jinta, asking for forgiveness, saying both father and the old master are all talk, no action. But whether they can hire a bodyguard is uncertain. That night, while Natsu is resting, Dino comes over and asks, "It's late. What are you still doing?" Dino complains, "The precious bodyguard was kicked out by the lady, so I came here to at least block the demon's path." Natsu looks annoyed and asks. Dino says, "So you think she's lying?" Then sadly adds, "Father also thinks you're lying, for sure." Dino says the old master always worries about and cares for the lady, but Natsu sadly replies, "But I'm not his child." The demon's voice suddenly sounds from the girl's mouth. Dino suddenly appears shouting, "Give it back!" His voice. The current queen says demons may target the Gagai, a treasured sword passed down through women. To them, it is. Scares Natsu, who grabs her head and says it's happening again. Dino is also startled and asks, "What is that?" Then he sees the demon. Manifest, demanding the return of a child while stepping forward. Dino tells the lady not to go outside and seems ready to risk his life to protect her. Protecting her, Natsu peeks through the door cracks, scared stiff as the demon reaches out to grab her. Dino slashes down with a sharp sword, cutting it in half. Then he asks, "What's the demon's name?" It doesn't answer, but lunges again, forcing Dino to strike another blow, cutting it in two and destroying its power. This surprises Dino greatly. The demon then disappears. Natsu appears and asks, "Is that the thug from before?" Dino jokes. "Then how much do you think he's worth?" But Natsu doesn't seem in the mood and asks, "Is the demon really dead?" Jinta answers, "When a demon dies, it turns into white smoke and vanishes. I've never seen otherwise, so that means the demon might come back." The demon makes Natsu think a lot. She says, could it be that no one knows what she's thinking, but Jinta looks quite serious. No one knows what will happen next. The next day, Dino thanks Jinta for saying the demon will return tonight. Something valuable. The Gagai was forged with Kadono's supreme technique lasting 1,000 years. He still needs Jinta's help. Jinta says to relax. While here, he wants to ask Dino about Natsu. The demon's words make him a bit uneasy. Dino then tells him Natsu's biological parents are relatives of the old master, but have passed away. He understands Jinta's suspicion, but reassures him it's not true. If Natsu were really a Jujo demon, father would never have adopted her. The reason is that Lady Jujo was killed by a demon, and her son left. He says all these tragedies were caused by demons. Demons are enemies who took away the family he loved. At night, only Suzuo and Natsu remain at home sharing a meal. He asks her, is there anything wrong with that bodyguard? Natsu shakes her head and says Jinta called her a thug, but he doesn't seem bad. Natsu adds, besides Jinta is the one father chose. Thank you for caring about me. Suzuo says that's only natural. What father wouldn't worry about his child? Natsu then asks, why did father choose that bodyguard? He explains recently in Edo, there have been rumors of demons appearing. But at the same time, there's a guy with just a sword who can kill demons that's Jinta. As long as you pay, he'll destroy any demon. Jinta is capable, and Natsu feels she can rely on him. He says Jinta is a perfect fit. It's no ordinary sword, but a spiritual blade. Inside, it holds power coveted by demons. The village chief demands women protect it fiercely. As a bodyguard for his daughter, Natsu is very happy father believes her demon story. Natsu loves her father very much. When it comes to horror stories, there are plenty of legends. Tales of yokai demons, restless spirits under willow trees and cemeteries and wells. But those made-up ghost stories aren't scary. Natsu once heard servants talk about her father's wife being eaten by demons, about a child lured away by a female demon. Jujo still believes his son will return, so he only adopted Natsu as a girl. She feels the truly frightening things are always plain truths without any embellishment. That night, Natsu can't sleep and goes outside where Jinta and Dino are standing guard. After teasing the steward a bit, she asks Jinta's name. I understand her father seems to think highly of him, so she tentatively trusts Jinta and asks the lady, you must really cherish your father. Right, Natsu quickly replies, of course father raised me to this day. How could I not be grateful? Jinta said that truly the bond is deep. He noticed Juju also cares a lot about Natsu. By the way, he has a question since he heard Juju. Jinta has a son. At this, Natsu snapped, saying she knows nothing about that son. Kiyomasa tells his father he worries too much. There's a female guard with top sword skills, so there's nothing to fear, right, Jinta? The son had already left. Jinta apologized. Natsu didn't want to talk, but kept thinking deeply, asking him, can humans and demons have children? The answer might be. Natsu wondered about herself since the demon said so. Could it be Jinta said she's not the demon's child? Natsu shouted at him. How can you be sure? Ginta said it's because he knows that demon has some grudge, so he understands it pretty well. By now, Natsu's identity was confirmed. Jinta didn't understand what Dino was thinking and asked, where do demons come from? He said surely from parents, as usual. But according to Jinta's broader knowledge, what's the truth? Dino asked in shock. From nothingness, really. Jinta answered, thoughts have power. The darker the thoughts, the stronger the power. Anger, hatred, jealousy, obsession, sorrow. Those deep feelings gather, crystallize, and form a shape. That's the kind of demon born from nothingness. The demon appeared, then terrifying Natsu greatly. Jinta stepped forward, demanding its name, but it just kept demanding its daughter back and charged to attack. Jinta wonders what he means. The female warrior says arguing before the gods is unwise. She has two guards, one of whom, without hesitation, Dino asked, what else is Dino doing? Make a move, dude. Can you just chop it down? The question was for Natsu, he emphasized with a serious face. This surprised Natsu a lot. Jinta said even if they kill it here, the demon will reappear in Sao. Sao, because it was born from Miss Natsu's thoughts. It appears according to her wishes, causing just enough trouble to catch her beloved father's attention, attacking those who insult her, whom she doesn't want to listen to. The demon had helped Natsu a lot, so that's it, Natsu thought silently. Now she understood her feelings. But let me ask those accidents and this whole mess, right? Right, it's exactly what she wished for. Natsu held her head, saying, stop it. Is Kiyomasa. Perhaps he's jealous of Ginta for his glorious achievements. She didn't want to hear it. And why was that demon so ugly? Jinta reminded her if they chopped at killing the demon, it would still be reborn no matter how many times. Until Natsu was satisfied, the demon would never disappear. Natsu cried, asking what should she do. Then Jinta said, just say one sentence, kill it. She was shocked. After hearing that, Natsu bowed her head. She always hid things she didn't want to see, concealing her weak ego, but yearning to be loved by that AI. But Father Juju didn't trust her, so she thought if the demon attacked like it did to his family long ago, maybe he'd value her more. Probably so. And so, the ugly thought inside her gradually took the form of that demon intentionally created. It was no different from Natsu herself. She cried, maybe regretting that she was the one who deserved to be cut down. Dino told Jinta she needed to chop the demon, not her. Even though the demon was her thought, it wasn't everything. After the Kadono villagers leave, seeing Jinta alone, the female warrior steps forward to greet him. He knew well how much Natsu loved her boss, and Juju absolutely regarded her as precious family. Dino's tone softened, lamenting that both the boss and the young lady refused to speak their true feelings. It's time to face each other and open up so they could truly become a family. Dino's words successfully comforted Natsu. Then she deeply regretted hiding many past mistakes, but from now on would try to change. So chop down that demon. After Jinta's strike, the evil spirit felt smoke rising as it vanished. Everything was over. Then Natsu rested exhausted, but Jinta did not. He finally discovered everything. Everything was just as he predicted. The evil spirit reappeared. If it was truly born from Natsu's thoughts, then when she denied its existence, it should disappear too. But in the Sagaza household, there was one more person who could turn into a demon. Her body patched up with bandages. In many places, it seems this abuse has happened many times. A beautiful wildflower. Her attitude is quite friendly. Unfortunately, Jinta remains very formal because it's his duty as a guard not to get close. Dino said the madam had been killed by a demon. So why did the demon in front of them keep demanding its daughter back? It wasn't just because of Natsu's thoughts, but also another idea mixed into the demon. The evil spirit had successfully resurrected and now screamed for its daughter again. Jinta thought the demon's daughter was actually the child born to Juju's madam. Suddenly no one else but Suzune. She was a demon's child, and a human child. He didn't expect to meet his mother in this situation. Honestly, he didn't remember anything about her, just asked to know her name. The demon only said one thing, "Give me back my child." Jinta called out, "Rest in peace." Then Jinta's sword struck the demon again, releasing white smoke as both spirits vanished. It was truly destroyed, and Jinta said farewell to the mother from long ago. The next day, Dino thanked Jinta again. He said Natsu should be like that too. The female warrior says, at least when only the two of them are left, he should call her by name. She was still hesitant. Yeah, teased by the steward, be careful, or you might create another demon. Natsu said she would change her personality, though she couldn't get it right immediately. Pushing aside her shyness, she thanked Jinta. He said no need to thank me, no need at all. He said he was just doing his job and had already been paid. Or rather, he came to repay a debt. Natsu asked what debt. Jinta said living long doesn't always mean growing up, but over time he realized some things. When young, you only see what's in front of you, too immature to understand that hurting others isn't always about right or wrong. There are things hidden behind that. This time, he wanted to repay the debt for the immaturity back then when he only knew how to run away. Jinta's words confused Natsu. He clarified that she should honor her father while she still can. No need for you to say that. Mentioning her father made Natsu irritated, because now only he can do that. But Jinta had finished speaking, saying farewell to Juju. Then someone appeared, asking if that bodyguard had left. Dino asked why he didn't see him off. Dino said it wasn't necessary. From the first look, he already knew that bodyguard would complete his mission. His answer was unrelated. Dino wondered if there was a reason for that high evaluation. Dino said, don't ask nonsense. No father ever misjudges his own child. He scolded Dino to stop meddling and get back to work before he loses his steward position. Then Natsu hesitantly asked if there was anything he could do to help his father. This surprised Juju greatly. She said it was because people say you should honor your parents. But Juju told Natsu not to worry about that. The female warrior is actually Shizuki. She apologizes for relying on him. Children living longer than their parents is already the greatest honor. That's enough to satisfy him, Juju said and went inside. The girl called after him, "Oh, father, but I still want to help you." Natsu had changed, and everything that happened with Jinta was wonderful like a dream. The old scenes remained, but he no longer belonged there. 6th year of the Vin family, people complained there was nothing fun lately. They heard foreign ships were disturbing the territory, yet the court did nothing. The noodle shop owner then brought Jinta a bowl of hot soba. He went on to complain to him that recently there had been a murderer appearing on the streets. He had a daughter, so he was constantly worried. But it's not wrong for a female warrior to depend on her brother. He joked that if he got shut down for talking too much, he'd be dead. The owner was curious how Jinta had visited 5 days in a row, despite the shop being so empty. The soba was delicious. Jinta's reply was just average. He was blunt enough to be scary. It seemed Jinta had a reason for visiting the shop. The owner also said he only accidentally learned that soba recipe, but dared to open the shop because everyone has a past. He asked if Jinta was the same. Nodding, the owner, rarely having customers, was very open. Seeing he had money, he then asked about his work. Jinta honestly said he specialized in demon slaying, mentioning that the owner immediately thought of the street murderer. He said the victims' bodies had no wounds. Their bodies were torn apart as if by wild beasts. Another issue was that the number of missing people didn't match the number of dead bodies. This was strange enough that rumors spread the deaths were caused by demons. Suzune, surprisingly, hasn't grown at all since then, curled up under the table, half asleep. After hearing this, Jinta asked where the street murderer appeared. Once he knew the location he planned to go, the owner's daughter, who seemed to like him, ran over to warn him to be careful. Although Jinta was confident, she said as long as he acted like that, his mindset was still childish. It was advice. Jinta then waited a long time at that bridge. When he started to get discouraged, he suddenly heard a scream. He quickly ran over, letting out a shout. He found a series of dead bodies, all men, while the screams he heard were from a woman. Still wondering, a sword flash suddenly slashed and injured Jinta. He didn't see who attacked, which surprised him. Suzune sadly says if someone kidnaps her, she'll disrespect women and then get killed. Immediately took a defensive stance, then the sword light reappeared. This time, Jinta blocked the invisible opponent's strike. He continued to focus, waiting for the next attack. The enemy learned from his mistake and tried a sneak attack, but Jinta seemed to have figured out the demon's abilities. Seeing no one around, he activated his demon hand power to confront the demon. Then he attacked the bloodstain on the ground, revealing its location. From his position, he counterattacked with demon hand power, instantly breaking the demon's weapon. Now he realized using this power against tough enemies was effective. He was confident the next encounter would defeat the opponent. The demon suddenly asked him to wait, panting and exhausted. Shizuki tells her not to say that. Suzune came here to see Jinta. But Jinta coldly announced his name before striking, wanting the demon to reveal its own name. After remembering Mosuke's name, Jinta told him to rest in peace. He struck immediately, and the panicked demon begged him to stop. Saying he never wanted to fight, Jinta paused and asked why he attacked first, then said that. Mosuke replied he thought Jinta was the street killer. Rumor said the killer was a demon. Jinta, standing at the crime scene with a demon's scent, caused misunderstandings. It wasn't until Jinta also called Mosuke the street killer that he began to suspect. But his explanation wasn't accepted so easily. Jinta wondered why a demon would try to kill the street killer. Mosuke seemed hesitant but earnestly asked Jinta, "Shall we go somewhere else first?" Jinta has been demon hunting for 2 whole days. She can't wait for him to come home. It wouldn't be good if someone discovered us here. Then they went to Mosuke's house. He confided that long-lived demons could appear human among mortals. Demons don't lie but often hide the truth. Mosuke asked Jinta if he was the same, then offered a drink. Jinta said it wasn't poison, but this forced friendliness brought no results. Jinta replied even if it was poison, he wouldn't die. Mosuke didn't mind losing. He introduced himself again. His identity was a poor man from the Jin slums. Jinta asked if he was essentially a demon with hidden powers that erased all traces, right? Mosuke said his power was called hidden movement. Jinta says rules are rules, then wakes Suzune up. Though he looked ordinary, he'd lived 100 years as a high-level demon. Jinta criticized Mosuke for still being weak. He laughed and said high-level demon isn't just about power. It refers to demons awakened with special abilities. So it's normal for high-level demons to be weaker in strength and speed than lower-level demons. Mosuke was embarrassed to be one of those cases. His openness made Jinta trust him more. After confirming he wasn't the street killer, Jinta wondered why Mosuke attacked him. Mosuke answered he wanted to kill the killer out of personal grudge. Setting aside the grudge for now, Jinta heard a woman scream but saw no one. She cries for her fate. Then her brother comes looking but only finds the flower. She seems to realize something and bows goodbye. Based on missing persons not matching victims, he guessed correctly. Mosuke said the street killer killed men and kidnapped women. Bitterly revealed one of his disciples was also a victim. Okay, then he told the story. Hatsu was a gentle woman. Though human, she never looked down on his origins. But a month ago, this kind wife disappeared. 10 days later, her body was found in a river. The officials said there were signs she'd been violated. Mosuke cried as he told this. He said he wasn't cruel by nature. He was driven by love for Hatsu. That's why he hated the killer. Jinta cheerfully greets his brother in the morning, happy he's back. Jinta said he couldn't accept Mosuke's reason because his job was demon extermination. The poor guy said okay and promised to try. He proposed they search for the street killer together. Share any information and, if possible, let him have the honor of killing him. Jinta asked if Mosuke was really that determined to get revenge. Mosuke repeated that demons don't lie. He was very determined even if revenge came at a cost. After confirming, Jinta agreed. They would cooperate. This made Mosuke very happy. Then they split up to search for information everywhere. But unfortunately, after a while, there was no progress at all. Jinta then tells Suzune the shrine is off limits. She's not allowed in, but Suzune doesn't seem scared at all. Besides being a bit discouraged, Mosuke was really an honest demon. When sad, he drank cheap alcohol. Mosuke asked Jinta, Jinta, why do you kill your own kind? Such a terrible story, please open up. Jinta replied, one reason is money. Humans hate demons and want to eliminate them whenever possible. Jinta takes money from those people. Then he asked Mosuke if he despises him. Mosuke said no. He thinks Jinta is someone who likes meaningless killing. Moreover, he's sitting here enjoying the alcohol bought with that money. How dare Mosuke say that he even praised the alcohol as delicious? The relationship between the two could be described as quite strange. Mosuke then asked Jinta for the next reason. Jinta replied, he wants power. Hearing someone approaching, she runs away. She has a secret path to freely enter and exit the shrine. He lives to stop a demon. Mosuke was a bit surprised and asked if he meant to stop not kill. Jinta then told his story. He used to be human and turned into a demon after his lover was killed. Demons harming humans is natural. At this point, they understood each other better. Mosuke asked, then why? Why doesn't Jinta kill that demon? He said the image of Suzune appeared before his eyes. It's hard to answer. He believes whether to kill or not depends on when they meet. Anyway, he needs power. Mosuke judged Jinta's story as really complicated. He concluded it simply because he is weak. Asked Mosuke what he plans to do after revenge. Mosuke said nothing special. At first, he became human because he didn't want to fight or kill. The visitor is the village chief wanting to discuss the previous incident with the queen. He didn't want to kill humans or his own kind. He just hoped for peaceful days to pass, ideally with his wife. Mosuke is truly pitiful. After a pause, he answered that after revenge, he wants to continue living peacefully and quietly, to take care of his wife's grave. Meeting Mosuke really stirred many feelings in Jinta. After hearing him speak, he suddenly couldn't stop sharing his true feelings, saying Mosuke overestimates him. So why not stop the meaningless things he's hating his sister for no reason at all? Jinta then visited the soba shop again. The boss's daughter brought out noodles and asked if he had any info about the street killer yet. Though he didn't remember when he told her mentioning Jinta made him realize the girl in front of him was really beautiful. The compliment surprised Ofu. The shop owner immediately came over to chat. He told Jinta he really has good taste, but after the surprise passed, Ofu told her father. He asks Jinta to stay out of it. Only women's voices will be accepted by Jinta. You're bothering Jinta. You'll have a place to belong soon. But now she wants to stay as the boss's daughter a little longer. Ofu is a polite, sociable girl who doesn't want to make Jinta uncomfortable. After apologizing to him, she gently asked about him first, if his father is like her father. Jinta actually isn't thinking about women heavily right now. He said he has a little sister named Susu. His father said she's not his blood and abused her. So he ran away from home with his sister. Hearing this, Ofu became sad and asked if he hates his father. He said he understands his father's feelings. What he wanted to do was unfortunate, but life doesn't always go as planned. Jinta then focused back on his mission. Unfortunately with Mosuke, they still haven't made any progress searching for someone by groping around. Even Mosuke began to think it's hopeless. She told you to be the female bodyguard entrusting Kadono's safety to you. They unexpectedly met Ofu, who was admiring flowers but at night alone. They feared she might be in danger. Jinta appeared, greeted her, and asked if she came alone. Turning back, Jinta saw Mosuke had vanished invisibly and whispered to bring her home. Love stories are always beautiful. Mosuke innocently wants to play matchmaker, matchmaking Jinta and the beautiful Ofu, so why did she come here alone at night? She said she wanted to admire the peach blossoms which are blooming right in front of her. Jinta said they're called willow blossoms. Ofu said no, they're called snow willow, but actually belong to the peach family. The flowers bloom all over the branches, heavy and drooping, like willow branches covered in snow. Ofu turns out to know quite a bit about flowers. Through her words to Jinta, it also shows she has a beautiful soul. Back when she was a kid, Shizuki told Jinta she wanted to be the queen because she loved Kadono. Jinta smiled with her will his heart finally thaw. Jin then said he would take Ofi, otherwise the shop owner would handle it. She also smiled and agreed, hoping for a happy ending between the two. On the way back, Ofi kept stressing that Jin should relax more and be comfortable. Sometimes she felt he was trying too hard. Of course Jin knew that, but he had a mission, one he had to complete, and it was his purpose in life, so it couldn't be different. Hearing that Ofi had no objections, just hoping that even if, whether more or less, Jinta should still rest. Chasing goals non-stop makes life dull. That was definitely impossible, but Jinta still thanked Ofi for caring. At that moment, she suddenly brightened up. It turned out there was a fragrant flower bush ahead that caught her attention. According to Ofi, this was the Tui Huang flower. Mother protected her. If she could be a support for her feelings, she would gladly do so without regret. It buds in autumn, stays dormant in winter, then blooms in spring. That's why Tui Huang is the symbol of spring. Also, over there is the Zhuangka tree. Jinta knew a little about this one. Its bark can be used as stomach medicine. Where he lived, they often brewed medicine like that, and the reason he remembered was because of his friend who often drank it. His friend loved sweets but had an uncontrollable sweet tooth which caused stomach aches. So he had to drink this medicine, plus he always dragged Jinta into mischief. At first glance, there seemed to be no good points, but Ofi thought it showed that Jinta had more than just a mission. He liked eating, soba, appreciated beautiful flowers, and had precious memories. If that's the case, you and I won't have a chance to meet anymore. Right now, his mission was blinding him, making him ignore everything else around him. That's why Ofi hoped he wouldn't be like that anymore. Sometimes he should stop to feel that life still blooms everywhere. Just by looking around, he'd see scenes he'd never noticed before. "Mom, I want to marry this girl." Of course, I'm the one making him say that. I stayed silent and walked Ofi all the way to her front door. It was late, but her house was still lit up, proving her parents were eagerly waiting. Ofi didn't know what else to say except goodbye and thank you. Luckily, Jinta took the initiative to suggest their next meeting. He really wanted Ofi to teach him the names of other flowers. He hurriedly braves the rain, calling out Suzune's name loudly. The brother finally found his sister. Jinta said he would come looking for her someday, grow strong like Motohazu, and defeat any demon. This she would definitely agree to with a smile, no need to say more. The girl's side had given the green light from the start, but just as Ofi entered, Mosuke showed up. That sly smile said he was eager to push this couple together, but for now, the main mission was still to be a street assassin. He didn't disappear for no reason. After a while, Jinta stationed himself on the bridge spanning the river, waiting for the enemy to appear. At this hour, meeting a few drunk guys staggering around was normal, but Natsu's presence was definitely a coincidence. On top of that, the street assassin appeared just as she was passing by. The assassin was executed on the spot without mercy. The culprit was, of course, the demon that had been rampaging these past days. Seeing Jinta draw his sword, it got excited and lunged forward. Jinta reacted quickly, pushing his sword to slash past the demon Natsu's claw. Hearing Shizuki cry on that firefly-lit night was truly beautiful. At this moment, terrified Natsu kept asking Jinta questions non-stop, but now he couldn't pay much attention to bystanders like her. He could only warn her that if she didn't want to die, she should stay put. After the warning, Jinta resumed battling the street assassin with new moves. However, it chose to shove him away to target Natsu, who was immobilized. Luckily, she quickly pushed aside to dodge the attack, seeing that Jinta immediately charged and slashed directly at the claw, then struck its horn, causing pain and forcing it to retreat. Though he wanted to chase, Jinta had to apologize to Mosuke. He didn't expect this demon to be insanely strong. Mosuke understood, so now he would quietly follow behind. Meanwhile, two demons were talking. One asked about the plan, the other said everything was perfect. Maybe he'd find the enemy's lair. Jinta worried and reminded him not to be reckless. Mosuke understood and valued his life too much, so he'd surely play it safe. Now only Jinta and Natsu were left on the bridge. And since Natsu couldn't stand up, she asked him for help. "You should have been responsible yourself, but having to remind you like this just makes me shake my head." After standing up, Natsu finally asked hesitantly, "Have you forgotten me already?" Hearing that Jinta took a closer look at the girl in front of him, he suddenly felt itchy because he recognized her, but he couldn't blame himself. Back then, Natsu was still a kid only 3 years ago, but grew up fast. Meanwhile, he himself still looked young and handsome, so it made sense he didn't recognize her. They used their power, unbelievable and absurd as it was, to identify that face. The demon's eyes looked just like theirs. Natsu felt itchy in both ears hearing that. He explained he was still out delivering orders to loyal customers who cared about their parents. After chatting a bit, Jinta realized Natsu had really changed a lot. She smiled more naturally than before and seemed more responsible now. Just then, a voice suddenly came from behind saying, "Natsu's still a kid, don't flatter him like he's some ghost or something." It was Zenshi Natsu's older brother. He didn't know Jinta, so he immediately teased if they two were secretly dating. Unexpectedly serious, Jinta bluntly talked about being attacked by a street murderer. Zenshi turned, saw a corpse right in front, and immediately fainted. He crawled over to Natsu and grabbed her leg, begging to report it to the authorities. But what good would the authorities do when the culprit is a demon? Now they could only hope Jinta could handle it. Are they talking about her Suzy and Jinta live happily together? When women come to visit, she hides wanting a day by Jinta's side. Natsu didn't bother with Zenshi. She only cared about Jinta and wanted to know how he'd been lately with nothing to hide. Jinta straightforwardly said his job was a wandering demon slayer. Of course, if anyone wanted to hire him, they could get a discount at the Akihei soba shop. Nowadays, everything needs money to seal the deal. Even permission is needed for everything, seeing that Zenshi called him over to share useful news. In the Jana temple area, there's an abandoned temple. The head monk died long ago, and people say every night you hear women screaming there. Coincidentally, that temple was where Mosuke used to go back in the day. It was late at night then. He chased after it. He was so scared his limbs went stiff and he couldn't move. He was worried, but Shizuki said that going out had been quietly approved by the village chief. The next morning, he got the news that his wife Hatsu was murdered by the riverbank. So Mosuke believes the demon from that night carried deep-seated hatred. He chased it all the way to the abandoned temple. Of course, he activated invisibility to get as close as possible. There, Mosuke saw the demon devouring a woman's body. This confirmed for him that the demon killed his wife. Witnessing this brutality only fueled his burning hatred. Jinta's previous advice was completely ignored. Mosuke drew his sword. The demon swiped back, striking him in a vital spot. Then it resumed devouring its prey before going out to hunt for more food. Everyone then had breakfast together, but Suzune mischievously teased her brother non-stop, leaving Jinta helpless. Mosuke lay in a heap beside it. By the time Jinta arrived, it was too late to save him. Mosuke mustered his last strength to relay what he knew, including that the demon was his wife's killer. So before passing on, Mosuke had one request for Jinta. The sword in his hand was forged in Kadono and said to be able to slay demons. Please use it to avenge Hatsu in his place. Jinta immediately agreed, but said he needed power in return. With Mosuke's consent, he used demon hands to absorb pure power. Along with it came all Mosuke's memories from birth until he became a demon. He lived integrated into society as a gentle, simple man. Life was peaceful and somewhat boring. The girl was genuinely happy because Shikamaru Shizuki came today, until he met that girl and was captivated by her gaze at first sight. From then on, he always found ways to approach and help her anytime, anywhere. Gradually, feelings began to sprout between them. Seeing the girl finally accepted the guy because the one she loved wasn't a demon or human, but Mosuke himself. With that, Jinta understood the full story Mosuke wanted to convey. About half an hour later, the demon returned with another woman's corpse. It repeated the process of devouring until fully satisfied. But how much is enough? From the moment it became conscious, its body was already a demon. All it knew was that men had to be killed for no reason at all. Since then, it kept searching. Even it didn't know what it was looking for. She was happy for her brother's joy and was surprised not to see him with a woman. But inside this demon's head, there was just a constant ringing. The words, "Hurry up, must return," kept echoing. To return, it needed to eat women's flesh to fill the emptiness. The more it ate, the closer the day of return would be. That's all this demon knew. But today would be its last day alive. Jinta had been patiently waiting. You activated the invisibility you got from Mosuke, used the sword he left behind, and cut off a demon's arm without revealing your position. Of course, it would still track your previous location by the sound. But whether it hits or not is another story. Using invisibility to bait the enemy flying around until the perfect moment, you then reveal yourself. You used the demon's arm to strike off the demon's head from its body. Not sure if the temple princess they forgot about knows this. However, before the finishing blow, you needed to ask it one question. The recent murder's corpse counts didn't match the missing persons, although it catching women to eat explains that there was still a mystery. Why did Mosuke's wife's body turn up when she was supposed to have been taken by it? That means there's been something hidden all this time. To uncover that Jinta would steal this demon's power and memories. Apparently, its side power is a short burst speed boost when activated. It can also skate through the air to move. Next is the memories part. This is the thing that shocked us the most. It turned out this demon was the girl who was kidnapped by two men by the riverside, raped to death, and thrown into the water. One of her eyes is bloodshot. Was it from injury or seeing her brother approaching Suzune backs away and says, "He will." The two then went to Chitosa's house. They love eating the buns made there. Her wish was to hurry and return to her husband. From there, Mosuke ended up being tragically sent off by the one he loved the most. But this was not the end. The next morning, Jinta toasted with Mosuke's wife and immediately left the house. That night, he stood at the spot where those two bastards who hurt Hatsu usually passed by. Even now, they proudly told each other their past exploits and were getting ready to hunt new prey. What's there to pity about them? Jinta ended their lives with 2 sword strikes and walked away. Mosuke's wish was fulfilled very quickly. Another story appeared to replace the previous event. Its main character was either a demon or maybe an ordinary person. I'm not quite 18 yet. I especially like playing ball and practicing spelling 1, 2, 3, 7, 8. But where's 9? But many childhood friends didn't recognize him, which made Shizuki a bit sad. The answer is coming right up. That night, a gloomy-faced fighter came to the Ofu family's noodle shop. But just before the door, he suddenly paused and looked far into the distance. It seemed he recognized a very familiar silhouette. He intended to follow, but bumped into Natsu, who was also planning to stop by the noodle shop. Seeing the 2 swords at this man's side, Natsu immediately bowed apologetically and begged the fighter not to act rashly over a small matter. Yet the fighter bowed as well, apologized, and took full responsibility. Then the shop owner came out to reassure Natsu not to worry because this was Miyuzana Osugu. Although a fighter, he was famous for being kind beyond others. After clearing up the misunderstanding, everyone went home. The next morning, Nao came back to the noodle shop, feeling bored, yawning, and sighing repeatedly. The owner found it strange and asked if there was a problem with the bowl of noodles. What can you do? Chitosa's little sister seems fond of Rinta, but is shy around him. Of course, it was just Nao's personal issue, unrelated to the shop. By the way, he also wanted to tell the father and son a story he actually had an older brother. As soon as he said that, the shop owner immediately raised his hand, begging him not to joke like that. If you're from the Miura family, how could you have an older brother? Yet Nao insisted he did, and that his brother's name was Sedan. Hearing that the owner could only apologize for having no information about that name, Nao fell into despair, not understanding why he was the only one aware of Sedan's existence. Or maybe there really was something wrong with his mind. Seeing his regular customer so endlessly melancholic made the noodle seller a bit uncomfortable. Lowering his voice, the owner advised Nao to pick up his chopsticks and eat as the noodles were about to overcook. I don't see her as unnatural because to her, you are now Lord Bodyguard. Nothing is unchanged. At that moment, Ofu suddenly had a pretty good idea. She wants to introduce someone who can help Nao handle this strange case. The boss nodded in agreement and said there's a customer who likes to get involved in weird stuff like this. Hearing this, Nao guessed it must be an onmyoji, or something similar, someone who makes a living by exorcising demons. At this, the father and son burst out laughing, saying that Nao's imagination was too wild. The person was just a wanderer, nothing more. But it's certain this person can solve the troubles weighing on him. Rumor has it, he's a skilled swordsman. Skilled enough to slay demons with just 1 sword sounds hard to believe, but he's genuinely kind. Kind-hearted, even Ofu praised him as somewhat adorable just right. Speaking of Cao Cao, Liu came to visit the shop. As usual, Ginta ordered a bowl of plain noodles to start his morning. After a while, as Ginta enjoyed the chewy noodles and original broth, the boss asked, "Why do you like our soba so much?" This is a heartfelt confession. At this point, Jinta recalls Shizuki's father always tried to teach him good things like a parent. It's really tasty, right? No, Ginta thought it's just ordinary. But this ordinariness is what makes him like it and come often. At this, Ofu brought a teapot to pour Ginta some tea, knowing he would finish his old cup anyway. A VIP regular after all, she also wanted to ask how he's been lately, if he's memorized the flower lesson. She hadn't finished asking when Ginta took a sip and recited a poem, "Autumn is the season of mocktail, spreading a rich, sweet fragrance, blooming beautiful flowers in the coming season." He knew the poem perfectly, well deserving of a reward from teacher Ofu. The next lesson will be stories related to flowers. Before she could finish, suddenly introduced himself, then asked Ginta if he specializes in investigating strange rumors about demons and demon slaying. Ginta admitted it was true. Demon slaying is his livelihood. However, he emphasized that his skill is limited to demon extermination, and if the cause of the anomaly isn't demons, it's beyond his expertise. After hearing this, Now promptly left, of course, not forgetting to pay for 8 untouched bowls of noodles. The father and son didn't know what else to do but beg Ginta to help now this time. That's why Jinta vowed that if he could protect Kadono's police, it would be wonderful. He's very troubled because his idiot older brother suddenly disappeared. The pain of losing a loved one has been tearing Now apart these past few days. Then he reluctantly agreed, seeing it as a way to repay the two who have always helped him. But he wondered why they cared so much about this customer, and the boss couldn't really explain. It's because Now is one of the shop's few regulars. After leaving the noodle shop, Natsu found Ginta sitting and savoring a rice cake at the town's famous shop. She copied him and ordered tea with cake since it's been a while since she last had rice cake, but while chewing her bite, Ginta asked still not married to Genji, which made her choke. She couldn't blame him, though Natsu is already 16. She angrily stated, "As for Genji, no way never." Ginta was puzzled because he thought Juju would be very angry. "Don't worry, if it's Genji, Natsu's not my aunt. She only sees him as a brother, and although her father set up some matchmaking, he said she'll decide her own marriage. Now, thinking about the meat shop, it'd be good if she married into a big merchant or a samurai family." After explaining, she turned to Natsu, asking when Ginta plans to get married. On this issue, honestly, Ginta didn't know. Who would marry a wanderer with no job or status like him? Natsu agreed with this. She just wondered how old Ginta really is that he talks like such an old man. No need to hide that. By the stream, the Kia stream at night filled with fireflies. 31 was the final number he gave. Natsu was shocked, not expecting Ginta to be older than Genshi. He once said he wouldn't grow old, wouldn't age, but she didn't believe it. He just said that. Now Ginta had to leave. Still, those demons making him restless. Before leaving, Natsu wanted to ask one last question. Why did he choose demon slaying with such superb swordsmanship? Clearly, he could do many other things. 31 was the final number he gave. Natsu was startled, not expecting Ginta to be older than even Genshi. "You once said you wouldn't grow old, wouldn't age, but I didn't believe it. It was just words." Now Ginta has to go. It's still those demons that keep him restless. Before leaving, Natsu wanted to ask one last question. Why did you choose demon slaying with such masterful swordsmanship? Clearly, you could do many other things. "I can only do this, though." Not the answer Natsu expected. Somehow, she felt relieved because Ginta usually looked cold and distant, making her think he was hard to approach. Turns out he also knows Troubles complains and is just as normal as anyone else. On top of that, this little one even made Ginta call her by her first name without any suffix, but it's obvious she really wants to take him home wolf. Being hard to approach, it turns out he also has worries, complaints, and is just as normal as everyone else. Besides that, this girl made Ginta call her by name without any suffix, but it's clear she's eager to bring him home wolf. But no way wolf. Shizuki apologized to the fireflies for always making Jinta indulge her. That afternoon, Now continued going out to search for his brother, but today his mother stopped him, telling him to stop being paranoid. The Miu family has only one son, the elder brother. No one else but Now insists there is even. He even went all the way to the red light district and the slums to search, which made his mother very unhappy. The Miyuza family has always valued loyalty and courage. Never forgetting manners, they swore loyalty to Tokugawa, ready to spill their last drop of blood. Yet now is doing the complete opposite. Hearing this, Now angrily swore that if he didn't find his brother, then all the warrior stuff is trash, saying that he dashed straight out, ignoring his mother's hoarse calls. At that moment, he recalled the saying, "It's not that a family exists first, then people come, but that people come first to create a family. We must understand that mindset, but can't bend our will because of it." His brother's face imprinted deeply in Nao's mind. How could he possibly forget? Suddenly, Jinta spoke up, pulling Nao back to reality and announcing he would save him. He would intervene in his brother's strange case, though he couldn't promise a solution. She said she had something to tell him. Would he listen? He could only try his best. Angry. What anger? Just believing what Nao said was already enough to save him. Getting straight to the point, Jinta wanted to hear about the situation before Nao's brother disappeared. He planned to invite him to the mansion to talk, but Nao suddenly remembered he had just had a huge argument with his mother. Jinta understood that pain somewhat and told Nao to move to another place. Expecting danger, it turned out to be the familiar number 3 noodle shop. Before starting the main topic, Nao had a small question. He noticed the sword at Jinta's side didn't look mass-produced. Could he be a warrior by origin? Of course not. Actually, where Jinta lived before was a forge called Kadono in the mountains. There was a position that was allowed to wear a sword, and he once held that role, so the court granted him permission. Hearing this, Nao immediately recognized it was Kadono. Why? His hobby was studying swords, so he was quite familiar with these. Jinta also revealed that this was a sacred sword worshipped at the village shrine. For a special reason, it was worshipped. But unexpectedly, Shizuki said she would marry Kiyomasa without inheriting a name. It was a family heirloom named after its supreme demon-slaying ability. You could say it was a spiritual sword that hasn't deteriorated even after thousands of years. Enough of the digression, Jinta gently reminded Nao to get to the main point quickly. As known, Nao's brother's name is Sedan, but no matter how much they searched, no one, not even AI, knew of his existence. They all affirmed Nao was the only legitimate male heir of the Miyuza family. Some vaguely remembered Sedan, but in the end, the answer remained the same. At this point, the shop owner wondered why such an important matter was discussed here. It should be somewhere more private. Jinta jokingly replied that, "Is there anywhere more private than this shop?" Actually, he brought them here because he saw how worried they were about Nao. Back to the main topic, Jinta wanted to know when Sedan disappeared, the approximate time. According to Nao, in early spring this year, he showed no unusual signs. By the time they realized he was gone, Nao only remembered that before disappearing, he said he was going to meet a girl. Also, there were flowers in his room, very fragrant, with small, delicate petals, yellow stamens, white petals. Get scolded, so just ignore her. But the brother isn't afraid, says let's go, then grabs Suzune's hand and runs away. Jinta was like a gift from Kiyomasa. Shizuki said the village chief told her yesterday that if demons targeted her for safety, she needed to bear an heir first. Sedan was not a flower admirer. The flowers were strange. Perhaps he left them in the room before leaving. And only Nao, entering the room, discovered this. Piecing together the clues, Jinta announced he would visit Nao's mansion tomorrow. The next morning before work, Jinta went to the usual shop for a bowl of noodles. It was strange that Natsu was already there, as if waiting, and seemed annoyed when Jinta didn't call her by name. The shop owner saw this and urged his daughter to try harder, or she'd lose him soon. After saying that, he ran to get a hairpin to give to Jinta. It was a gift from Nao, and he felt unworthy to receive it himself, so he hoped Jinta would accept it. Not sure how to refuse, Jinta just took it. The owner was pleased. Then Jinta asked about the flower with yellow stamens and white petals Nao mentioned. Was it a daffodil? He truly hoped it wasn't, or it would be dangerous. The next afternoon, guided Jinta went to Nao's mansion. Upon entering, "It's dangerous." The next afternoon, Jinta followed directions to Nao's mansion. As soon as he entered, he was personally welcomed by the lady of the house and courteously bowed to introduce himself. Kiyomasa is the female bodyguard with Kadono's royal bloodline and will become the village chief later. asking her to forgive this sudden visit. Seeing this, the lady knelt down to greet the guest and asked her son detailed questions about Jinta. Nothing like having the person involved answer directly to be quick. Jinta said he came from Kadono, the place with the swordsmith forge. At this, Nao interrupted to say Jinta was a recently met like-minded friend. Today, he invited him over to drink and chat all night. Thought that was the end of it, but the lady called Jinta's name and gave a strange thank you. When asked, it turned out. Because Nayu had been gloomy and troubled lately, but today he was noticeably cheerful, which made her as a mother happy too. After a while, Jinta, sitting in Nao's room sipping tea, I admired that he had such a good mother. Nao seemed a bit shy, but put it aside for now. After the formalities, he took out some flowers he got from his brother's room to show Jinta. They really were daffodils, just a bit smaller than Jinta expected. Then he asked in detail if these flowers were found around springtime, right? If so, he thinks it's very likely the girl Saddam met is one of them. Shizuki said this engagement is for the people. He was taken to a place separated from reality. To put it simply, these daffodils only bloom where that demon lives. To be sure, Jinta now wants to check Sedan's room. Nayo immediately agreed and stood up to lead the way. But Jinta told him to go ahead without explaining why. Although vague, Nao trusted him and followed. According to Jinta, if the wandering demon slayer is there, probably nothing will happen. Very quickly, Nao arrived at Sedan's room door. Suddenly, the scent of daffodils wafted around, spinning his head. Then the demon's song echoed in rhythm, 1, 2, 3, 4. The village chief's words made sense to Shizuki, so now personally she wants to say she loves Jinta, but from now on she is Byakuya. She can no longer return as Shirozaki. Old memories soaked in smoke and fire flooded Nao's mind. Here a girl was innocently playing ball when she noticed thick smoke rising all around. She immediately ran home to call her parents, but it was too late. They were all swallowed by the flames, leaving only her, a child, as the survivor. Everyone in town thought demons appeared and dared not approach, because at that time the girl's eyes had turned bright red. Realizing she had lost her parents, her home, and even her memories, now she barely held on to her own body. She could no longer return to where she was born. The way home was buried, forcing her to flee to another town. To be honest, she once thought about running away with him far away, but she knows he would never choose that path. The roads and people here were truly unfamiliar. No one paid attention to her, and she just lived like that. Until she grew up every day secretly watching others' happy lives. Then silently suffering, murmuring, constantly wanting to go home. Going back to the time when she played ball carefree and saw her parents waiting at home. Gradually, that strong desire became real thanks to the demon power inside her. All the pain seemed to have never happened. Her parents suddenly appeared right before her eyes. The scene felt strangely familiar. Then the ball started bouncing repeatedly. The girl was lost in endless memories. Jinta said that's right. It's not that he doesn't like her simply because he swore to protect Byakuya, not Shizuru. Forever, that's what Nao just witnessed with his own eyes. His mind still hadn't fully grasped everything. But it was okay. Jinta knew that and called him back to reality. It seemed Nao had just slipped into another place, not Sedan's room. The fire scene, the girl wandering turned demon, and the mansion she once lived in that should have been destroyed. Jinta affirmed it was not simply an illusion. As soon as he finished speaking, Nao's brother appeared in front of him. Nao's brother was beside a girl with a happy expression. Nao, half in doubt, slowly approached, but suddenly felt a sharp pain in his head. Sedan in front was saying something about what to eat for lunch today. Since childhood, he worked hard to master swordsmanship out of respect for her determination to become a woman. Your cooking skills have improved a lot, don't joke around. Like a father trying to coax his daughter inside for a meal. But the girl said she'd had enough and told him to go home. Then scolded him, saying he has a family waiting for him every day, every hour. So don't ruin your family out of some foolish pity. Besides, this is the Garden of Happiness. The girl can see both her father and mother here, so she doesn't need him here. Sedan obviously knew that, but still chose to stay. Because it's not that there is a house first, then people, but people come first, then there is a house. So if there is no laughter there, then it's not a home. You know that for over 100 years, the girl has always been here alone. If he chose to be with her, it would be like denying the path he chose, and her decision as well. She herself is fully aware of that. So, if the girl agrees to leave now, Sedan will go too. However, she insists on staying because there's nowhere else to go besides this garden. Hearing this, Sadan patiently and gently asks if the girl wants to live with him. If so, she can be his daughter. Then Sadan will quit being a fighter and live a peaceful life with his daughter. Even after saying that, the girl still refuses, firmly believing there's no place better or happier than here. Moreover, she can't see Sadan as her father. It seemed like he would give up, but instead, he became even more determined. He will definitely wait for the day she agrees to be his daughter. At the same time, he insists that he is very serious about this. He can't accept that. Shizuki said indeed the two are alike until the very end. On the day he becomes her father, he will surely take her away from here. The more he talks, the more the daughter gets upset. I don't want to talk anymore since that day will never come anyway. Sadan laughs non-stop hearing that. If that's the case, he'll just wait here forever. What else can he do? At this point, Sadan suddenly vanishes, causing Nao to panic. He keeps asking the demon in front of him, but the answers are vague and hopeless. All he can do is kneel down and beg it to return his brother. He's already humbled himself a lot, but it seems nothing changes. Nothing changes. On top of that, Jinta even tries to give advice, saying it's useless, which makes him lose his temper. Jinta then explains in detail, flowers bloom by season is basic knowledge. At the last moment, instead of choosing love with someone, they chose to uphold their way of life. The daffodil, the flower Nao took earlier, blooms early in winter. Yet Sadan lost it in early spring, so where did he get that daffodil? Exactly only from the demon's place, the place where daffodils bloom year-round. That's not all. As you know, daffodils signal the arrival of spring. But now it's autumn, and look, the daffodils are blooming, meaning time flows much faster than in reality. About this, the girl doesn't hide anything and reveals her power is electric dreaming. She can create this happy garden where she once lived, projecting memories onto the miniature garden to prove it. She creates an image of her mother praising her daughter, then it fades away. Because that's all the power she has. She can't trap anyone in this miniature area forever. They take shelter from the rain in an abandoned house. With her brother there, Suzune isn't afraid of the cold. Suddenly, a seemingly kind man approaches. She chose to be a woman. If she gave up, she couldn't face him properly. This power is only used to reminisce about the past. Nao immediately understands the problem. If it's only the past, then Sadan's brother is truly gone. The demon girl also apologizes for taking Nao's brother away. But really, she has to thank Nao's family for lending her Hyoma. He has helped her a lot. When he wakes up, the scene will return to reality, so don't worry. Jinta then asks what the girl plans to do next. Although there's no exact answer, she knows Hyoma risked his life to become important to her. So now, letting go of everything after the balloon bursts, she will keep her promise to Sadan and leave for another place. After a while, everything returns to normal. Nao looks up and realizes his long search for his brother was in vain. He wonders why he even wanted to stay in a garden made by a demon. She decided this so she could love him forever. Is family no longer important to Saddam? As for Jinta, he tells himself the happy garden has disappeared. The next morning, Nao arranges to meet Jinta at Noodle Shop number 3. He has been urgently investigating archived documents in the city. Indeed, there was a massive fire about 200 years ago. It seems that unprecedented blaze took everything from the demon girl. According to Nao's speculation, his family land is the mansion where the girl once lived. Jinta fully agrees, which is why the happy garden is located there. It sounds like a meeting across time. But in truth, it's still too painful for Nao. Jinta said he would continue as the female bodyguard to protect her, but all those words he just said, are they lies? Zin also somewhat understands that pain, so he bowed and apologized. In the end, he couldn't help at all. Nao is startled. Please lift your head. From the bottom of my heart, I'm very grateful that you agreed to help. I think everything was his choice. As for me, I have nothing more to say. You can't possibly know why he left home. But one thing's for sure, he never gave up until the very end. That's enough. It's getting late, so now we'll take his leave and get back to work. Seeing that Ofu called him back. He expressed that the Lord's brother was a great man, even if no one remembered him like Lord Saddam. He risked everything to save a child. Those words were like a miracle balm soothing Nao's deeply wounded heart. Meanwhile, Suzune sat biting her nails in the dark night. Tears streamed down his face on their own, but it was okay. They were tears of gratitude, tears of pride for having such an amazing big brother. After Nao left, the father and son at the noodle shop turned to thank Jinta cheerfully. But the owner had a feeling Jinta was holding some worries and wanted to ask. That's right, Jinta still couldn't unravel all the twists of this case. He was very curious about the female demon calling him Hyoma. It was clearly different from what he heard from now. The owner gave the answer that it was the warrior's true name. Every warrior has a true name, so it wasn't unusual. But wait, a warrior's true name is basically only known by its owner. Why does the girl act so strangely? The owner laughed and explained that families knowing each other's true names is normal. The female demon knowing it meant she recognized the girl as family. Jinta listened quietly, then asked the owner how Nao's mother used to scold him for only thinking about fighting. Nao wanted to hear it again, but this time the owner dodged the question. Of course, Jinta still clearly remembered the story he had told before. Back then, he called Nao Azumoji, even though Jinta had already met Nao's mother. She was strict even with, if so, how did the owner know the name Azumoji? No need to answer, let the guy become the detective himself. The female demon said Saddam was no longer here. That was true, but incomplete. Jinta deduced that Saddam lived in the Happy Garden with the female demon, but decided to leave halfway through. A report came in that 2 demons appeared in the Izazu forest. Then he realized he had aged more than 20 years, even though only a month had passed. Knowing he couldn't return home, he went downtown, bought an old building cheap, opened a soba noodle shop, and lived day by day. At this point, the owner was still trying. Satan had died long ago, but Jinta firmly refuted that because the girl smiled at the end. Surely it was because she had someone by her side, so I revealed everything. The owner was the one who killed the demon, killed it. It was surprising that from the moment Sedan gave him the precious item and said it was a gift from the Lady Jinta, also wondered didn't he plan to tell his younger brother, just leave Nao sad like that. Then he chose to abandon the Miura family to protect what he valued more, so he no longer had the right to call himself Nao's brother. Besides, Nao wasn't a child anymore, so he'd definitely live well without him. As for the hairpin, he wanted to give it to Jinta and hoped he wouldn't return it. Byakuya said Kiyomasa would stay in Kadono, and Jinta should go to the forest to focus on his role. Lastly, why did he want to be that girl's father? The answer was actually simple. There was no reason. He just didn't like seeing her alone. Not only that, but the sudden explosion revealed that Kyofu was actually the female demon from back then, meaning she was over 200 years old, so Jinta needed to think this through. For now, let's make some noodles chan to regain some energy. Thanks to a reputation matched by skill, no sooner had he finished than someone came to seek Jinta's help again. This time, a client entrusted him to investigate a painting, a ukiyo-e called Kudanaka, brought in by Ma, the owner of a local art shop. Strange rumors circulated. At first glance, the painting seemed normal, but people whispered it was a demon painting. The rumors grew darker when the artist who sketched it suddenly fell seriously ill with impotence and paralysis, leading many to believe he was cursed for trading in cursed items. After explaining, the guest asked Jinta's impression. At this point, the picture still showed nothing unusual, but Jinta understood that strange things often only appear at the right moment, and not everyone has the ability to see them. Involved with demons, Jinta couldn't ignore it, so he decided to accept the guest's extremely generous offer, promising a hefty reward and a lavish feast once the truth was revealed. Believing that reality supports righteousness, Jinta leisurely stopped by his usual soba shop, intending to enjoy the famous Chan noodles of Ofu. But before he could even warm his seat, Genshi rushed in panicked, seeking his help. Jinta then accepted the demon-slaying mission, receiving Byakuya's good luck wishes, while Kiyomasa stared at him unblinking, asking if he was forced. It turns out Genshi also has a Kudanaka painting, and like the other guest, he's anxiously worried about the accompanying cursed spell. Seeing the painting crumpled in Genshi's hands, Jinta blurted out his comment. Genshi scratched his head, embarrassed, confessing it was his clumsiness that caused it. The soba shop owner frowned, reminding Genshi that bringing a rumored cursed object, especially a damaged one, into the shop is inappropriate. Hastily explaining the urgency and promising to leave as soon as the work is done, Genshi openly took out his own painting and explained he was entrusted to lift the curse before it could cause terrible disaster. Both paintings were so beautiful, showing no signs of being cursed, as rumored. She asked Genshi if he had more information. Genshi commented on the similar colors when placing the two paintings side by side, and the paper quality still looked new, estimated to be printed less than a year ago. More importantly, Genshi boasted he knew many art dealers in Tenma and eagerly offered to help Jinta investigate the real artist behind these works. Jinta couldn't hide his joy as that would save a lot of searching. Genshi quickly waved his hand, saying no need for formalities among acquaintances, especially since Jinta had helped the young lady countless times, so this small favor was nothing. No comment. Could it be you already know about me and Byakuya? Indeed, thanks to special connections, since Genshi was a regular customer who collected adult paintings at a Tenma gallery, the shop owner especially favored him. Despite being teased about introducing all kinds of new erotic art, Genshi remained serious and completed his task. After getting the address of the artist named Dosu, Genshi informed Jinta to receive the news. He told Jinta to go ahead and that he would handle the rest. Arriving at the front door, Jinta called out loudly, and a weak voice inside allowed him to enter. Dosu, the artist, was extremely happy to have a guest visit after a long illness. Though frail, he forced himself to get up and personally brewed tea to offer his guest. Facing the artist whose body was wasted away by illness, Jinta glanced around the room filled with stunning paintings and professional art tools, then kindly inquired about his health. Old artist Dosu waved off the concern, saying it wasn't illness, but the natural rule of aging. Getting old means getting weak. No beating around the bush. Jinta got straight to the point, presenting the Kudanaka painting. As soon as Dosu saw it, he softly sighed in nostalgia, recalling how many years had passed since he first painted it. Jinta said that's right. The other asked if he could stand that. Jinta frankly expressed his purpose to investigate the truth behind the Kudanaka painting and asked Dosu to share its background in detail. After a moment of silence, as if searching his memory, the old artist began his story. Dosu started by saying this painting had nothing to do with Kudanaka in Edo, as people mistakenly thought. The real subject was the woman in the painting, who had no name. Kudanaka was just a name he himself gave her. Long ago, a man named Motu often visited him, and this man was the inspiration behind the painting's creation. Hearing the name Moto Jinta couldn't help but be shocked. Memories flooded back of his foster father, the one who had cared for him all those years, becoming vivid in his mind. He recalled the tragic moment when Moto chose to perish alongside the demons to protect the women and children. Jinta still clearly remembered Moto's defiant words before the life-or-death battle facing the Sea of Flames. Moto confessed that at first he hated the female ruler, but fate gave him what he hated. Over time, his feelings changed from not understanding who he was protecting to truly wanting to protect that woman. Things changed. Everything changes over the years. Even hearts that seem unchanging cannot last forever. He offers his hand and tells them to come to his home if they have nowhere else to hide. The next day, Jinta wakes up on the man's shoulder, thinking about what, of course, the safety of the priestess princess and peace in Kadono. He advised Jinta not to be like himself, but to become someone who values even hatred. Then he entrusted Juki to Jinta and asked him to reconcile with Suzune. After that, Moto charged alone into a deadly battle against the demons his back turned. That steadfast, brave act left an unforgettable mark deep in Jinta's heart. Though it felt sudden, the chance to meet a familiar person, his foster father, was too rare to pass up. Jinta earnestly asked Dosu to tell him more about Moto. He didn't hesitate to reveal he was from Kadono. Just like Moto, that man was his foster father. Hearing this, the old artist smiled kindly. After all, it's not strange for a son to want to learn about his father. Kiyomasa asked if Jinta also likes Byakuya, but is he really okay with it? He continued to talk about Kudanaka, mentioning Moto's youth when he first arrived in Edo free-spirited and had met a very beautiful young woman whose background was unknown. That girl wasn't proud at all and warmly responded to Dosu. They quickly became close, promising to help each other during the time Dosu stayed in Edo. When Dosu asked her name, she honestly said she had none, so the neighbors called her Nameless. From then on, Dosu and Nameless often visited each other. Whenever free, Nameless would drop by to watch Dosu showcase his painting skills. Hearing Dosu boast he would become the #1 artist, Nameless just smiled quietly. Being a lover of beauty, Nameless said Dosu's paintings had soul, but were still immature to reach legendary heights. Dosu went on saying that at that time, Moto, as the female ruler's guard, often delivered letters on her behalf. He's crazy. Jinta said he feels the same and then walked away. Nameless said Moto was very unhappy having to do such trivial tasks like delivering letters because their relationship with the female ruler was still like cats and dogs. Year after year, Moto came to Edo once, and every time he vented his frustrations and nagged about all kinds of things to Nameless, who could only shake her head at the couple who loved and fought so fiercely. Dosu revealed that the original red-colored painting was hand-painted by him, while Nameless was still there. The current circulating paintings are woodblock prints made from that original sketch. Therefore, it can be said that the painting depicts Nameless, but not entirely. Jinta wondered why it was called a demon painting. Dosu nodded, admitting it was indeed a demon painting and at its core contained a curse. Before explaining in detail, Dosu asked Jinta what he thought when looking at the Kudanaka painting. Jinta replied that the combination of the female ruler by the river and the jade gem first reminded him of Nunaka, a legend from Shinano. But the sword she held reminded him of Kadono and Isukihime. A single battle, unfortunately, it seems the enemy never gave him a chance. Apparently, this answer greatly pleased Dosu. He solemnly continued. Now he would talk about the so-called demon painting, but I'm afraid you'll regret hearing it. Dosu recounted during those years, Moto came to Edo out of habit, a little annoyed at first, but then returned, yet his attitude toward women gradually changed, no longer bitter or harsh. Instead, there was understanding and a wholehearted desire to protect her. It was Moto himself who asked Dosu to paint a portrait of that queen. Known for teasing, Dosu didn't miss the chance to mock his iceberg-like friend. Truly, even someone as cold as you can fall into the trap of love someday. From criticizing other girls to being completely infatuated, Dosu was skilled at painting beauties, but painting a woman he had never met was truly challenging. Right now, Suzune is home alone. Moto quickly reassured him, saying he already had a solution. He revealed that Vodan was originally born in Shinano, then somehow drifted to Kadono before finally settling in Edo. Coincidentally, Vodan and the Shrine Maiden looked like two peas in a pod. So this painting is actually a portrait of the Kadono Shrine Maiden, based on Vodan's appearance, combining the images of two incomparable beauties from Kudanaka. The sword she holds was from when Moto bitterly hated her, often mocking the Shrine Maiden as looking more like a demon than a real one. The name Demon Painting came from that as a way to mock his past insults. After completing the sketch, Dosu's health really declined, making him no longer strong enough to paint. He even wondered if using the demon painting to trade others' memories was a punishment. On top of that, people like Senzu believed it. The folk called it a cursed painting, causing illness. But in the end, it was all just coincidence. A girl who seems to be a stranger from Kadono village comes to see her. Jinta, having lost Byakuya, is also lonely and immediately sets off for Izaku. Dosu insisted this was a completely normal painting. But Jin wondered why earlier it seemed totally normal and not scary at all. Earlier, Dosu sighed, explaining it was because at first he was very confident in his painting. But Moto was never satisfied, insisting it was far from the image of his woman, making Dosu redo it countless times to capture her breathtaking beauty. In the end, the completed Tanaka painting was actually the queen's image adjusted by Moto himself. Dosu also revealed an interesting detail. While Jinta associated Kudanaka with Nunaka Mo, To saw her as identical to the goddess Ra-Zas. According to Moto's description, this goddess whom he once told Jinta about when alive was also born in Shinano, the hometown of the unknown. Dosu impressed fans by noting that both father and son compared Kudanaka to a goddess, truly an intriguing coincidence. After countless revisions, Moto was finally satisfied, holding the painting, his face full of contentment. Dosu urged him to name the work. Moto initially wanted to call it Goddess Ra-Saka, but changed his mind because in his heart, the queen was even more beautiful than the goddess. As he trudges forward, the Ra demon suddenly attacks, striking Jinta back and shattering his sword into two pieces. Ultimately, the name Kudanaka was finalized. Then Dosu looked at Jinta with a sly smile. After all that time, all he got was some cheesy love stories from the old man. No regrets, though. Also, the painter pointed out a detail on the painting. It says, "The Curse," with a capital C, not the curse as the rumors claimed. Then he handed Jinta the original sketch before edits and said, "Your old man may be a bit foolish, but he's someone who truly thinks of his family. So I hope you won't hate him because of this." Since having a daughter, Moto grew less fond of Edo. When he later reported taking in another pair of adopted children, he disappeared, probably busy taking care of the kids. At that moment, the image of two children huddled in the cold, rainy night, saved by Moto's outstretched hand, vividly returned to Jinta's mind. Gratitude alone isn't enough. How could he blame that wonderful foster father who taught him so much goodness, shaping the Jinta he is today? In the evening, Jinta went to his usual noodle shop to enjoy his favorite bowl of noodles. Ofu and her father noticed he seemed distracted and gently asked. He then calmly asked, "Is there only one?" Jinta said it was nothing significant, just that today he discovered another side of his foster father. Ofu smiled, saying that was normal. Her own father wasn't perfect either. He often nagged, worried too much, and was forgetful, but that's what made him a real father. Ofu's sincere comfort and her radiant full moon smile suddenly warmed Jinta's heart, easing much of his inner turmoil. That night, Jinta met the client again to report the investigation results. He confirmed it was all just coincidence. The painting had no issues, and the deaths after owning it were unfortunate events unrelated to any curse. The proof was that he had kept it for several days without harm. The client accepted Jinta's conclusion, promised to send payment the next day, and as promised, prepared a lavish feast to celebrate the successful resolution with Jinta late into the night. Under the dark night, in a bustling street by the glowing cherry blossoms, a demon suddenly appeared before Jinta, coaxing and begging him to buy her. Of course, Jinta flatly refused, which enraged the demon, who continued begging him to make the deal. But her disgusting appearance didn't move Jinta in the slightest. He thought there were two demons. The bull-headed demon says, "Ah, now that you're in Kadono, you have your answer." Jinta immediately charges, planting his feet firmly and swinging his sword down through the first strike. Her harsh words hit a nerve. The demon screamed wildly, her already hideous face twisting even more. She lunged to attack, but Jinta easily dodged every deadly strike. Still, the demon refused to give up, crazily charging at him. Jinta spoke his name and asked the opponent's name, but the enraged demon could only scream nonsense without replying. Seeing this, Jinta didn't ask further. Drawing his sword, a decisive slash sent the demon back to the earth. Not far away, a silent girl witnessed everything. It turned out she was the client who had hired him. After everything ended, she paid him a fair reward. She explained the demon used to be a somewhat famous courtesan in the area, but a cruel life imprisoned her, drained her by men, and eventually she contracted a vicious syphilis, her body and soul rotting before being mercilessly abandoned. It's unknown when she transformed into the demon who kills men under that fateful cherry blossom tree. For the client, this end was perhaps also a release for the poor girl. Jinta is slightly wounded but manages to push the demon back. Jinta wondered if compassion was what drove her to hire him. The girl smiled softly, confessing she was just weak-hearted, thinking she could foresee the future, but fearing that one day she might become like that girl, so she couldn't ignore it. "Thank you, Jinta. You seem like a wanderer, but you tend to meddle in other people's business." Jinta was surprised and didn't understand why she thought that. She replied that it's an occupational hazard, the ability to read men's moods by their expressions. Still, she added that he looked like a lost child. Then she introduced herself as Zotaka looked away with distant eyes and quietly asked that if one day she turned into a demon under this cherry tree, please end it decisively. Of course, by then, she wouldn't be conscious enough to repay him. Jinta bluntly answered he doesn't work for free. Jinta watched Zotaka's figure fade away and thought to himself that this girl was really strange.